The world is getting crazier. People are acting more and more insane. The end of the world is tomorrow. Tomorrow. There's only one thing to do when the world is falling apart. Listen to Basil and Gonz as they discuss this week's news and events through the lens of Bible prophecy. You are listening to Canary Crime News Talk.
You're listening to Canary Crime News Talk. Today is, what is today? It's June 2nd, 2025. This is episode 846, and today, Palantir MAGI-KARP. And signing on from Off the Grid, Razzle Dazzle. I'm your best buddy, Basil, and you are not crazy. And on top of that, our other best buddy, Gonz, is not here for today's show. You might be noticing that the show started significantly later than one would expect or hope. And this is a testament to the case that prepping this show takes longer than it does to do the show. I don't know if that's something we talk about very often. I'll say, at least doing the show alone, prepping the show as a singular sentient entity, takes significantly longer than the show's probably going to last. But we're going to have some fun today. Gonz, let's just start out here, of course. Where is Gonz? Why is Gonz? What's going on? Well, Gonzo is taking the day off. He's going to be spending some, time with his family today. And you know what? Why don't we just do this?
Producers, assemble!
That's right. Keep the whole family in your prayers. This is a very good day to activate the producers. You know, we're on the value for value model. We got producers all over the place, but you can spiritually produce the show by becoming a producer. And all you got to do is just take a second, pray for the show, pray for me, pray for Gonz, pray for the other producers of the show. It's very easy peasy, fun time, but extremely important, especially in days and times such as these, where everything is quite obviously a spiritual war, so much so that even the secular news outlets are sort of recognizing this. Yes, but we're praying for Gonz. He'll give a bunch more. Well, he'll give whatever details he wants to give when he's back on the show on Wednesday. But we are, of course, keeping Gonz, his whole family, in our prayers as they sort of embark on a not so fun, but journey as far as that goes. So I'm going to stop stammering about that. I'm going to let Gonz share whatever he wants to share, but we're keeping him in our prayers. So, goodness gracious. I'm going to try my best not to just sort of yammer on about, like, get super meta about what doing the show solo and things like that. I'm going to try. But, you know, for me on this side, if I don't address it, it's just going to be even weirder. Big shout out to everybody who's in the chat. Thank you for being here. Probably going to be a little bit lighter day on the live viewership because, yes, it is significantly. It's dinner time for some people. It is. People are going to bed as we start the show. And, I don't know if people listen to this show to fall asleep or not. I know that's a common thing for other shows. I can't imagine that this show would be like a very good thing to fall asleep to, at least if you're not, trying to get woken up by some sort of raptor noise or rant about esotericism and advertising, which, oh my goodness, you guys are going to love it. Leash is off, folks. The leash is off. Big shout out to everybody who joined the text message alert system. I'm going to check in with you guys there a little bit. But first, we got to start out because there's so many things going on in the world. The news is jam-packed. Remember, we are in a fifth generation war, and it is not just a war for your vote. It is a war for your mind. And in war, as we will learn more about, is not just about, casualties. A lot of people don't consider this, but when you talk about war, and you talk about casualties, casualty does not inherently mean a death or someone is deceased. When they count casualties, casualties include injuries, they include deserters, they include things like this. And so in the 5th generation war, which we are currently in, have been in quite some time, and not metaphorically, literally, between nation states. Now, we know that nation states are not the top of the pyramid as far as that goes, but even if you want to just make the example, in the nation state example, the easiest way to cognate when thinking about warfare, our 5th generation war, including China, the propaganda information war, the turning of American youth in all different directions, except for the one that benefits the nation state of the United States. All of this counts. Okay? All of this counts. And we'll get much further into that later on. But we're going to jump into some news here in just a moment because, well, the news is here. The news is happening. It's new. That's why they call it news. I want to start out with a quick little clip here, and I'm praying to good Lord above that all my clips work. But I'm going to start out with a clip. This came out last week after last week's last show, and it'll set the stage for some very interesting things that are happening currently. Now, remember, when I play something from last week, it's not to say, holy moly, have you heard of this? I bet you missed this one. Certainly people have probably seen this. But since we have a few days out, some time to think and watch the plan play out, the timing is very interesting. So let's start out with this. This is Mr. Bibi Netanyahu. Let's see what he has to say.
For these neo-Nazis, Free Palestine is just today's version of Heil Hitler. They don't want a Palestinian state. They want to destroy the Jewish state. They want to annihilate the Jewish people who've been in the land of Israel for 3,500 years. I could never understand how this simple truth evades the leaders of France, Britain, Canada, and others. They're now proposing to establish a Palestinian state and reward these murderers with the ultimate prize. Well, for 18 years, we had a de facto Palestinian state. It's called Gaza. And what did we get? Peace? No. We got the most savage slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust. You won't be surprised to learn that Hamas thanked President Macron and Prime Minister Starmer and Carney for demanding that Israel end its war in Gaza immediately. Hamas was right to thank them, because by issuing their demand, replete with a threat of sanctions against Israel, not Hamas, these three leaders effectively said they want Hamas to remain in power. They want Israel to stay.
Okay, I'm going to stop that right there because he does go on, and the things I want to point out were kind of there in the first 30 seconds. In fact, let me play the first 5 seconds.
For these neo-Nazis, Free Palestine is just today's version of Heil Hitler.
That's an interesting thing to say, isn't it? Now, we know here in the U.S., if we're looking at the Trump administration, look, it's been very interesting to watch. Not only, look, I love watching the battles that go on in the various political parties. In fact, I almost, and I really wish I did, but I can't, we don't have the time for it, brought in my recent analysis of the civil war within the Democrat Party, which, I started piecing the pieces together a couple of weeks ago, and I should have brought it to the show earlier because it looks like the mainstream's starting to catch on, but I'll save that for another episode. But inherently, we know, because on this show, we understand there is no left and right. The idea of left and right, Republican, Democrat, things like this, this is just propaganda terms. These are categories that make it easier for those who are just vaguely paying attention, or maybe aren't necessarily involved in politics for the deepest sort of reasons, to be able to pick a team. And more often do people, when they decide to pick a team, red or blue, more often they tend to just take their cues from the herd on either side, whether it's red or they're blue. Very rarely do the opinions, the ideas, things like this affect the group setting. When you join a team, you very rarely bring any ideas to the group. But more often than not, the group then dictates what you think here. But on the right side as well, it's very interesting because, of course, the Israel thing, not just the conflict in Gaza, but sort of the long storied history of the U.S. involvement in the Middle East and vice versa, when it comes to Israel, is a pretty divisive topic on the right. In fact, it's one of the most laughable things when we see the leftist voice here or there, or the Democrat voice here or there, or even sometimes the independent voice here or there, talk about the right as if it is, sort of a monolithic group of people. The right, sort of almost by definition, is just everything that isn't left. The left is pretty, at least up until recently, one of the big critiques of the left you could make is that they had very high purity standards. And if you deviate even 1 inch from the official party view, you're not just not a Democrat, you are then the right. And so you have the left, and then every single thing that is not perfectly aligned with the purity test of the left suddenly becomes the right. And so if you're looking at the right, if you're going to go off the definitions of the categorizations that are sort of implanted and enforced upon us on the worldwide brainwashing project that is the popular media, the right becomes a very confusing group of people, because you will have things like neo-Nazis. Sure, they're out there. They do exist. Or you will have people, libertarians are a great example, who, if you're a conservative purist, you'll have lots of problems with libertarians, things like this. And so we get back to the story here. Netanyahu proclaiming that saying the words "Free Palestine," the phrase itself, is the new Heil Hitler. I think the timing of this is very interesting. Not only because it was about a month ago, I think now, that Kanye West came out with his song of the same name that just destroyed everybody's brains there for a while. He did re-release that song. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It has not been getting as much attention as, of course, the first version, for obvious reasons. I didn't bring a clip. Shoot. Maybe I'll bring a clip of it here in a second. But he re-released the song where the chorus is no longer Heil Hitler, but it is Hallelujah. It's sort of an attempt to, from what I hear, from what I see, I don't know if I'd call it an apology, but I'll say it's another twist and turn in the Kanye journey, whatever that means for us. So at the same time that Kanye, who sort of got the credit for claiming to be a Nazi, I don't even know if that's the right way to say that, but you get what I'm saying. He comes around, re-releases the song, takes out the Nazi bits, and puts in Hallelujah as sort of this turnaround. He's trying to repair the image. Honestly, he's just trying to confuse everybody. I mean, that's kind of that's his value in the fifth generation war, is he's just, you have no idea what's going on. He's very good at confusing the entire population. So at the same time, we're a few days out from Netanyahu saying the phrase "Free Palestine" is the new Heil Hitler. Now, of course, this is very interesting because of the Free Palestine movement. The protests continue, the flags continue to wave. And just so happens to be that a big story just dropped over the weekend. Tragic, in fact, but is centered around this Free Palestine phrase. And this is coming from Reuters, although you can come from anywhere. Let me put it up on screen for you if I'm capable of this. Apparently not. Yeah, apparently I'm not. There it is. Okay. Coming from Reuters here. The headline is Man Attacks Colorado Crowd with Firebombs. 8 people injured. Now this headline, it's not super noteworthy, but it is noteworthy to say that every single one that I came across, the main mainstream media outlets, had the headline of Man Attacks Crowd with Firebombs, which is kind of unusual. Usually you'll get some identifying information. Who's the crowd? Who's the man? What's the deal? This is where the mind control starts, in the headline. Because a lot of people just read the headline, remember. People will scroll through, read the headline, and then talk about it with their friends as if, they're learned scholars and media critics. They'll talk, oh, did you hear about the man who attacked a Colorado crowd? Unbelievable. So obviously, with no identifying factors like this, there is no emotional trigger as you scroll through it. And remember, it's all about emotional triggering. We covered that last episode. It's not so much about dictating what you think. It's much more about how you feel. That is where the real control comes in when it comes to social engineering. Keep that in mind as we move on to further stories. Man attacks Colorado crowd with firebombs, 8 people injured. Boulder, Colorado, June 1st. 8 people were injured on Sunday when a 45-year-old man yelled, "Free Palestine," and threw incendiary devices. I've learned that when they say incendiary devices, this is just the news term for Molotov cocktails. Threw incendiary devices into a crowd in Boulder, Colorado, where a demonstration to remember the Israeli hostages who remain in Gaza was taking place, authorities said. Now, it's important to, note Boulder, Colorado. Colorado as a whole, blue state. Boulder, Colorado, certainly you could just call blue. Just full blue. What is it? Deep blue? Deep blue is what I was trying to think. And Free Palestine is kind of, you're gonna associate that with Democrats, or at least the most generous, with the far left, the sort of radical left lunatics that you hear so much about. So you're in a blue state, in a blue city, and a guy yells "Free Palestine" and throws Molotov cocktails into a crowd, quote, where a demonstration to remember the Israeli hostages who remain in Gaza was taking place, authorities said. 4 women and 4 men between 52 and 88 years old were transported to hospitals. Boulder police said authorities had earlier put the count of the injured at 6 and said at least one of them was in critical condition. Quote, as a result of these preliminary facts, it is clear that this is a targeted act of violence, and the FBI is investigating this as an act of terrorism. The FBI special agent in charge of the Denver field office, Mark Michalek, said. Michalek named the suspect as Mohammed Salman, who was hospitalized shortly after the attack. Reuters could not immediately locate contact information for him or his family. Well, thanks for trying, Reuters. They're like, I don't know. I can't find him on Facebook. Sorry. Okay, Mohammed. FBI Director Kash Patel also described the incident as a, quote, targeted terror attack. And Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser said it appeared to be, quote, a hate crime given the group that was targeted. Boulder Police Chief Stephen Redfern said he did not believe anyone else was involved. Yeah, given the group that was targeted, and perhaps given the fact that the phrase was yelled out, that was just categorized as the new HH. Quote, "We're fairly confident we have the lone suspect in custody." Now, that's a very interesting detail. I don't know. It just kind of seems out of place. It seems kind of weird. But I don't know. We don't have a reason to necessarily doubt it. But it is sort of a strange quote. Not even just detail. Like, the man has been gotten and we got him and we're good. It's just, we're fairly confident we have the lone suspect in custody, he said. The attack took place on the Pearl Street Mall, a popular pedestrian shopping district in the shadow of the University of Colorado, during an event organized by Run for Their Lives, an organization devoted to drawing attention to the hostages seized in the aftermath of Hamas's 2023 attack on Israel. In a statement, the group said the walks have been held every week since then for the hostages, quote, "without any violent incidents until today." Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said in a statement that the victims were attacked, quote, "simply because they were Jews," end quote, and that he trusted U.S. authorities would prosecute, quote, "the cold blood perpetrator to the fullest extent of the law." Now, of course, this is wrapped up in all sorts of things. The defunding of elite universities, of course, a big Trump move recently. The, I wouldn't say extrajudicial, but the previously not exercised powers of Marco Rubio to take away the visas of pretty much anybody he wants, whenever he wants. This has been one of the very interesting moves in the Trump administration to really clamp down on this Free Palestine. I don't know. I don't even want to necessarily call it a movement or anything, but this category, this ideological category, going so far as to instituting new policies with people asking to get visas to come into the country, using the power of the government to sort of comb through people's data, their social media posts, and anything that kind of leans in the anti-Israel or Free Palestine direction are not given the opportunity to come into the country. Now, the excuses, the explanations coming from Marco Rubio and the Trump administration, let me be clear. I mean, for me, and I think this is going to be part of the conversation as we work our way through the rest of the episode here, because it's not that they don't make sense. They make total sense. I get it. If somebody is actively hostile against the United States, or at least, I think in a different way, against its interests, which means against its allies, against its foreign policy, it's only logical that you would have some sort of filtering mechanism for that. And it really doesn't seem that unusual. I'm kind of actually surprised that it hasn't been exercised a little bit more. However, it was a different administration. It was a different time. So don't get me wrong. It makes logical sense to me. Now, it has given the opportunity for those on the left or the critics of the Trump administration to kind of tease the right or tease Trump supporters and say, hey, your boy is acting tyrannically. But given the popular sentiment with immigration in general, there's not a whole lot of pushback. Not none, but not a whole lot from the right. And so there's already an atmosphere of clamping down on the pro-Palestinian, I don't know if I'd call it anti-Israel, but certainly anti-Israel is included in there, sentiment on a culture-wide basis. Is like the immune system of the Trump administration. Maybe Trump is the I don't know, immune boosting supplement to not just the government, but the actual culture, which, you know, you're always going to get some pushback, and that's what he's getting. But to say that the words free Palestine are equivalent to saying Heil Hitler, obviously a very strong statement, obviously meant to be a very strong statement. But up until Kanye, up until Kanye, nobody really thought about the phrase Heil Hitler. It wasn't necessarily in common parlance. It wasn't necessarily something that people were yelling out their window as they listened to rap music. And remember, this is Netanyahu in some strange sense. Now, Kanye comes out with a song. It sort of activates this immune response in the culture. And of course, it goes both, kind of went both ways. But it aggravated the immune system, meaning it caused this inflammation. Either way. The Heil Hitler song comes out, and you could almost imagine that the body that is American culture gets inflamed. We don't know. It could go either way. Inflammation is just sort of a reaction. And then Netanyahu comes along to see the inflammation, the body maybe fighting off an infection. And he says, no, you're talking about Heil Hitler, but I'm talking about free Palestine. And that's like the new Heil Hitler. Now, of course, how much does it mean coming from a world leader versus like a very famous rapper or cultural icon? I think there's an interesting conversation to be said there. Politicians say stuff all the time that doesn't actually catch on in the culture. But the government doesn't always operate off of the same fundamentals that the culture operates on. We've been seeing a severe crackdown in anti-Israel, anti-Semitic, pro-Palestine, free Palestine ideology, rhetoric. Free speech has been challenged in several different ways. Immigration, it's really affecting things top to bottom. And this has even a lot on the right a bit uncomfortable. Maybe they're not even pro-free Palestine, but there's some discomfort. I think there was a grace period for Trump. There was a grace period for Trump where all the things that he was doing that people had wanted for years, closing the border, defunding USAID, doing Doge, this type of thing, dismantling, whatever version of the deep state that he dismantled. He got a lot of grace and a lot of patience for doing that. And it seems, again, back to timing, that he's really hoping that he can squeeze a little bit more time out of that. But I think he's losing it. Because you got to admit, even if you are just straight up a Republican, which, some people here are, maybe someone thinks of themselves as a moderate or a centrist, maybe somebody thinks of themselves as a libertarian. The threshold in the continuum, the political continuum, the threshold for patience for Trump to be doing some drastic things is starting to get a little bit higher. It's kind of going up. The threshold is higher. There's all sorts of talk about, sort of adjusting the legal requirements for the government to, immigration is one thing. But free speech is a totally different thing. And yes, Trump has, again, kind of like Kanye, in that he's a bit of a master of the redirect, a master of the twists and the turns. Right when you think you got him figured out about something, he flips it. This is a talent, by the way. This is not being wishy-washy. This is not being a flip-flopper. This is what a master magician knows how to do, to wield culture in the direction they want it to go, because he was getting a lot of guff from the right, talking about how he's getting a little bit too cozy with Israel, talking about how it feels like, you know, we might go to war with Iran because Israel. And then he turns around and says, hey, we're going to bail. We're going to bail, Netanyahu, if you do crazy stuff. We don't always have your back. It's a very interesting situation, very interesting timing. Free Palestine is equated, or even, I don't know, placed on a higher status than Heil Hitler by Netanyahu days later. And days earlier was the killing of the two Israeli, now they weren't Israeli, but the two ambassadors. Were they actual ambassadors? I don't know. But, you know, they were the two, I think they were Christian Americans who were becoming Messianic Jews. They loved the state of Israel. They worked in the embassy, I believe. So whatever, you know, this whole thing happens. That in flares. That's kind of what got Netanyahu's response up. And then here we are a few days later. Free Palestine man attacks. In this case, I mean, again, it's all worst case scenario here. This is awful. But the timing is just perfect. It says here, the incident comes amid heightened tensions in the United States over Israel's war in Gaza, which has spurred both an increase in anti-Semitic hate crime as well as moves by conservative supporters of Israel, led by President Donald Trump, to brand pro-Palestinian protests as anti-Semitic. This pro-Palestinian sort of anti-Semitic labyrinth of language, you got to watch out for it. It is interesting. I'm not going to dig into it now. His administration has detained protesters of the war without charge and cut off funding to elite universities that have permitted such demonstrations. Yes, we know this. And then it goes into the victims, which is very sad. So I wonder what you guys think. I mean, when I talk about the timing of these things, am I suggesting false flags? Not really. I mean, I don't know, maybe, not directly. That's not really the point. Because, of course, we know that there's a whole nother realm of stuff going on. Not everything has to be a physical, sort of bureaucratic conspiracy. And this is why I think people who... there's going to be several parts of this episode where those who have been with us, or at least have had their eyes open and their watchman hat on for many years, there's going to be a lot of good examples about the Lord spending years and maybe decades equipping people to navigate this crazy fifth generation war, the spiritual war, without having to rely on any individual faction or ideology to guide them through it. Because not only do we know that each faction has its own sort of diabolical ends and ways of achieving those ends, and propaganda, mind control, language control. If they're an earthly faction, they're involved in all this sort of thing. But as we know recently, these factions are starting to shift. They're starting to change. Again, it's part of the confusion. The confusion of Kanye, the confusion of Trump, the confusion, the confounding of what we think we know about the categories that kind of make up the world we live in. Left and right, red and blue, these sorts of groups, splintering and taking twists and turns that kind of not mess up the way we think about it, but the traditional ways of thinking about these factions are becoming less and less helpful. We're going to get deeper into that in a moment. We got a show for you. We're going to take a second and thank some producers because we are back. We are back, baby. And we're going to thank some executive producers in a moment, for a moment, because these are the people keeping the show alive. Here's this.
Value for value. We take no money from corporations, commies, or cartels.
That's right. We are on the value for value model, which means we don't take any money from corporations, commies, cartels, governments, non-government organizations, Vatican, factions, groups, nothing. We are entirely produced by individuals. Isn't it interesting how relying on factions, relying on categories, relying on teams is so often how shows like this are sustained. But not here. It's all about a bunch of individuals, folks, coming in with their time, their talent, or their treasure. No corporate incentives, no corporate money, nothing like that. The fact that we are on air for one more day is a testament to individuals around the world who are saying, you know what? I get it. I appreciate that as far as financially or support-wise, I can be sure that Canary Cry is not carrying the banner for money for anybody. But instead, we rely on our producers. And that's you, just anybody who gets any value from this, they're invited to put value back in. In fact, it's sort of required. If it weren't for individuals making the decision, thinking to themselves, you know what, I actually get value from this. And, oh, goodness gracious, I can't rely on corporations to pay for this to exist in exchange for mind controlling me and advertising to me and taking up my time and my consciousness and my free will via the occult practice and esoteric witchcraft of advertising. Well, if I want it to keep going, I got to do something about it. And there's all sorts of ways to do it. It's not just about money. You can do it with your time, your talent, your treasure, whatever it is that the Lord has equipped you with to participate in his mission here on earth. You can use that to keep the show alive. And easy peasy, all you got to do is go to canarycry.support, and you can learn all about it there and get involved. Bing bong. So the executive producers, there are those who come in to support the show for $100 or more for any individual episode. That is this. This is an individual episode. And so we had some people, thank goodness gracious. Last week was a little bit squirrely, a little hectic as far as producership went. But thank God for these producers and thank them directly for coming in and supporting the show. We're going to start out with, oh, by the way, I have very few jingles I can play here, and that's okay. I'll try my best, but we're going to experiment with just thanking people without jingles. I guess I have this bell. The bell's nice. All right. We're going to thank executive producer Sir LX Protocol V2, Baron of the Brian Protocol. He came in last Wednesday as well. He came in, made up for that one. And so we're adding 2 executive producer credits to his streak. He comes in for $100.33. Thank you very much, Sir Alex Protocol V2. He is on a 396 episode streak, which is crazy, and a 50 episode executive producer streak. And so we're going to have to play you an executive Nifty 50 Jamboree Jubilee when Gons gets back. Thank you very much, Sir LX Protocol. We also had producer Jonathan K come in for an executive producer. Ship came in with a nice round number, which if you don't know, if you produce the show for a nice round number, that's you telling us you prefer us not to disclose the amount of that producership. If you don't mind us disclosing it, you come in, add 33 cents on there, 77 cents, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is. Have some fun with the number. That's you telling us you don't mind if we disclose it on the show. But thank you very much, executive producer Jonathan K. Now, last week on Thursday's Canary Cry Clubhouse, which if you're not tuning into Canary Cry Clubhouse, folks, you need to be doing that because that show just keeps getting better and better and better. And I credit the people calling in for that. But we had an executive producer come in for that Thursday show, and I just wanted to give them credit here too, just to make sure that they got thanked on the show that they wanted to produce. I will say this, from now on, producerships that come between Wednesday's show and Thursday's live will be credited on Clubhouse. This is the official announcement. If you produce the show on Wednesday or Thursday, you'll be credited on that show. And we won't be rolling those over because that show's a part of the family. That show's a part of the thing. You should be tuning in for that show too. And people who want to produce that show, you're going to be thanked on that show. But we had executive producer TDL Prez come in. Thank you very much, executive producer TDL Prez. Here, look, I have this too. There we go. That sounds familiar. And TDL Prez came in for $533.33, which is incredible. Thank you, TDL Prez. I told you last week, you saved the week last week. That really meant a lot. And you sent a note here. It says, with love from Bella Suzu, a Lil Bright Canary, Mai, and TDL Prez, your Atlanta DJ rockers. Please keep us in your prayers. Lots going on with the getting used to, as well as trying to be serial entrepreneurs, as well as just keeping the vibes 100s. Well, thank you very much, TDL Prez. Yes, say hi to tiny little new baby Bella Suzu, and God bless you and your family, man. You're making it happen. You're doing it. You're such a great part of the community. Thank you, buddy. We had a couple executive producers here coming at the last second. Let me thank them real quick. Oh, we just had, it looks like, one executive producer come in. That is executive producer Chelsea S. is back. Thank you very much, Chelsea S. Chelsea S. came in for $111. Goodness gracious. So generous. Thank you very much, Chelsea S. And I believe that wraps up the executive producerships for today's episode. Thank you so much. And for everybody else, don't forget, you can produce a show any way you like with your time, your talent, your treasure. You can even become a knight or a dame of the Canary Cry Roundtable of Knights and Dames. When you support the show for $1,000 or more, we will honor you here on the show. You'll get a place at the round table, and of course, you will henceforth be known as your knight or dame name, which is very important. Let's see here. I think I had a note to... Oh, you know what? Let me do this. We had the Houston meetup last week. Do I have the meetup jingle? No, I don't. I do not have it. That's okay. Maybe I'll save that for... No, I'll do it now. Well, let's see. I don't have the picture. Let me upload the picture here. Everybody, hold on one second. We had a great meetup. I believe that was on the 24th. It was about a week ago now in Houston, Texas, which was very exciting. It was at the Battle Axe Throwing. We're trying to, come on, Houston, Texas, folks. Texas is a big place. I know. It's just keeps getting bigger and bigger, actually. I don't know how, but last I checked, you can fit all of Texas within Texas, which is very impressive. But who was it? It was Sir David G. Yes, Sir David G. hosted the meetup out there. And he sent a note here that says, what a great turnout. All in all, we had 9 people show up. Some were early, some were late. All were welcome and appreciated. We had believers, non-believers, listeners, non-listeners. We had great fun, great conversation, and great fellowship. Stay tuned for future meetups. Thank you guys for creating a space for us to be able to do this. You are greatly appreciated. Well, thank you, Sir David G. Look at that. They sent a picture here. This is the crew. If you want to see it here, very fun. They're at the axe throwing lanes, if you know what that looks like. Looks like we've got about 9 people. Good looking, powerful survivors is what I'm seeing here. It's very fun. They printed out the Spaceman Basil Canary face. I don't know if that's edited on there, I'm assuming. Yes, they're all 9 of them are googly-eyed canaries wearing a space helmet, which is a great way to protect your identity. I recommend everybody do that. And they also had held up a little poster there. This is a great way, if you're holding a meetup, to let people know who you are. You know, if they're meeting you in a restaurant or something, you're looking around, you don't know anybody. All you got to do is look for the cutouts of Gonza's and I's faces. Those are available over there at canarycrymeetups.com. We got a little packet there to help you throw your meetup with printouts and things like that. It's very fun. Sir David G. Big shout out to Sir David G. and every Houston area Canarian. Sounds like you guys had a great time. And yes, folks, go to canarycrymeetups.com. It is up to y'all to host these meetups. It's very easy. Pick a time, pick a place. Let us know about it. We will tell the world of the canarium. And it's very important to meet other actual human beings in your area instead of relying on, just an internet acquaintance when things go totally south. Okay. Well, from there, I do want to take a second, give a big old shout out to everybody who joined the Canary Cry text message alert system. Just real quick, do it now. If you haven't done it, now is your time. Now is your chance. Take out your phone, open up your text messages, and text the word Canary to 877-740-3226. I'll show it on the screen there. Just text the word Canary to 877-740-3226. I'll send you a little text before every show so you never miss a show. And the fun part is you can text us back at that number. It's very fun. I read them all. I love them all. Sometimes I read them on the show. I didn't get a whole lot of time to browse them today because I was doing all sorts of other things. But do want to give a shout out to 623 who says, Happy Monday. Be blessed. This is Ernesto from the big 602 or 623 in the West Valley. Thank you very much, Ernesto. And remember, folks, keep an ear out for your area code. This is how you learn when there's Canarians in your area, of which there almost certainly are. Uh-oh, this one makes me guilty. 661 text says, whoever receives one such child in my name receives me, Matthew 18:5. And then texted, restream to Twitch today. I'm so sorry, Twitch people. I repent. I forgot to stream to Twitch. You know, this whole thing, I don't know how anybody does like a full-on stream production solo. Because like I said, it takes longer to set up the show today than it's going to take to actually do the show. And sometimes you just miss things. And I missed streaming to Twitch. Sorry, 661. Let's see here. Okay, who's this? 513 says, shout out to my Cincinnati 513 Canarians. Where are you at, Cincinnati? Cincinnati Canarians. If you're listening to this in Cincinnati, you need to text Canary to 877-740-3226. Start texting the text message alert system. Get your shout outs for Cincinnati. Maybe we need to start some sort of, what's the word? Scoreboard? Do some sort of scoreboard where each area code, we'll document how many people in those area codes exist. And then you'll win a prize. You'll win a good prize. Okay, let's get back to the news here, folks, because there's more news and there's more to get through. So where did we leave off? Let's do this. Oh, okay. So we ended with the firebombing in Colorado, the Free Palestine Declaration from Benjamin Netanyahu. Okay, I'm going to stay on that theme for just a moment because Free Palestine, let me bring this up. I'm going to play a clip here in a second. The Free Palestine protests continue. We've seen this happen in the streets, in the colleges. We see this happen. We've been seeing this happen a lot at speaking events for various politicians. It's happening everywhere. Now, there was just a moment here. I'm going to play this video. This is from a speaking engagement from a fella named MAGI-KARP. And MAGI-KARP is the CEO of Palantir. And here's a
A
clip
few
of
people
this.
get wealthy, and if you said,
Get wealthy off of killing Palestinians with their AI and technology.
oh,
You're killing my family in Palestine
Yeah.
because you are killing my people and you're justifying it because of Hamas or anyone else.
can we get security up there? Okay. What are the?
Big bravo to Summer for having gotten a chance to interrupt that horrible Alex.
Okay, thank you, Summer, for having a chance to interrupt that Alex Karp. So if you had a hard time hearing it, Alex Karp, who says the craziest stuff when he is at speaking engagements. I brought a couple of clips, but you'll see I could have brought a lot more. Alex Karp, CEO of Palantir, he is a strange individual, and we'll get into that in a second. But the Free Palestine movement popped up to let Alex Karp know how they felt. Now, those who are watching the video, you can see this cat who is walking all over me. In case you needed some information, this is the biggest, heaviest cat in the whole world, and he has the tiniest little feet. And so, you know, it's just science when you put about 100 pounds of cat focused on maybe like a 1/10 of a square inch toe bean. They kind of tend to stab through your leg, like, I don't know, some sort of hydraulic press or something. So if I scream out in pain, excuse me, that's what that is. And this cat is very interested in interrupting the show. Hello, little knife feet. Okay, so back to Alex Karp, back to Palantir. Now, this individual, this Free Palestine protest, is directly related to Palantir's involvement in the Israeli-Gaza conflict. Let me bring up this story. Now, this story is from last year. We've covered this before, but just to remind you, this is coming from April 12th, 2024. How U.S. intelligence and an American company feed Israel's killing machine in Gaza. It says here, Glilat Junction in the Israeli city of Ramat HaSharon is a crossroad where the Trans-Samaria Highway bisects the coastal highway. It is also a key crossroads for Israel's human and technical spies. On the east side of the highway is Herzog Camp, and to the west is Dane Camp. Together, the 462 acres of land make up Camp Moshe Dayan, the most secret military base in the country. Surrounded by a variety of intrusion prevention devices and high steel fences topped with barbed wire, Camp Dayan is home to a number of highly sensitive military intelligence installations, including its central training base and advanced targeting center. Unit 81. A secret technology unit attached to the Special Operations Division and the IDF Signals Intelligence College. By far, the most secret is the headquarters of Unit 8200, which specializes in eavesdropping, code breaking, and cyber warfare. Israel's equivalent of the American National Security Agency, one of Unit 8200's newest and most important organizations is the Data Science and Artificial Intelligence Center, which, according to a spokesman, was responsible for developing the AI systems that, quote, transformed the entire concepts of targets in the IDF. Transformed the entire concept of targets in the IDF is a very strange way to say that. Back in 2021, the Israeli military described its 11-day war on Gaza as the world's first AI war. Israel's ongoing invasion of Gaza offers a more recent and devastating example. Now, you remember this. This goes on to talk about how Israel, using AI and other tools, was choosing where to drop bombs. And this was done with cell phone data. This was done with, pretty much all signals intelligence, but not just the data. The data isn't isn't all of it. It isn't the key even. The key was the AI ability to parse through massive amounts of data and decision make on behalf of the IDF. And if we remember, this resulted in the bombing, the destruction, the killing of some pretty unusual targets, some targets that you wouldn't necessarily expect or you wouldn't think would be prioritized in a battle like that, in a conflict like that. It included residential neighborhoods. It included buildings in which there would be, someone who might be a legitimate target, but there's sort of hundreds of other people. And the most egregious part about this was that the decisions were being made by robots, by AI. Now, Israel claimed that, a human always made the final decision. This program was called Lavender. I'm going to jump down on this article here. This is after a discussion of some of the mistakes made by Israel in some of the strikes. It says, such horrendous mistakes are hard to understand, considering the enormous amount of advanced targeting AI software and software provided to the Israeli military and spy agencies. Some of it by one American company in particular, Palantir Technologies. Quote, we stand with Israel, the Denver-based company, Denver, Colorado. Colorado, what are you doing? Palantir. It's interesting. Palantir is often considered a Silicon Valley company. Of course, the culture could be Silicon Valley. The individuals can be Silicon Valley individuals. But here they're referring to it as a Denver-based company. We stand with Israel, the Denver-based company said in posts on X and LinkedIn. Quote, the board of directors of Palantir will be gathering in Tel Aviv next week for its first meeting of the new year. Our work in the region has never been more vital, and it will continue. End quote. As one of the world's most advanced data mining companies with ties to the CIA, Palantir's work, that's in quotes, was supplying Israel's military and intelligence agencies with advanced and powerful targeting capabilities, the precise capabilities that allowed Israel to place 3 drone-fired missiles into 3 clearly marked aid vehicles. Quote, I'm pretty encouraged about talent here and that we are getting the best people. Alex Karp, co-founder and CEO of the company, told a group soon after arriving in Tel Aviv last January, quote, what I see in Israel is this hybrid of talent that is qualitative and argumentative, end quote. Immediately after the talk, Karp traveled to a military headquarters where he signed an upgraded agreement with Israel's Minister of Defense. Quote, both parties have mutually agreed to harness Palantir's advanced technology in support of war-related missions, said Executive Vice President Josh Harris. And it goes on to talk about the artificial intelligence platform and its role in the first AI war. Now, why is it interesting? Why is any of this interesting at all? I mean, of course, AI is like apparently the big, most exciting thing that's going to end the world. Free Palestine getting a lot of attention here in the U.S. with continued events that, you'd think, and of course we know what's going on. There are all sorts of groups, and these groups are wide open for participation with anyone who is influenced enough to do something on these groups' behalf. Now, the Israel-Gaza thing has a lot of good points on both sides, which is something you say when you want both sides to get absolutely infuriated with whatever you're going to say. And that is a risk I am willing to take. Before we get more into Palantir, one interesting thing, and this is something we've known, this is not an unknown fact about Palantir, but I thought it would be good to make the reference again and dive in just a little bit more because it sets the stage for some pretty disturbing shifts that we're going to be seeing. Now, Palantir, as many of you know, is a word that comes from J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. I know we have some Lord of the Rings fans here, but I'm going to jump over just to the Wikipedia. Now, remember, Palantir is this AI. I mean, it's more than AI. It is the epitome of the panopticon. It is the central most, much like a giant 100-pound cat can stand on tiny little feet that seem to want to crush through the earth because of the small surface area, so much power centralized on one small surface area. Such is Palantir, a fairly small company, but we'll get into that here in a second. But as we know, when it comes to technocrats, transhumans, the technate, technocracy, this coming age where so much that has been sort of prophesied and analyzed and predicted when it comes to technology's role in not just controlling populations and governing the earth, but also its sort of esoteric roots, its occult roots, the practitioners of various occult arts and rituals and groups like this, making technology not just an extension of human beings, but an extension of the supernatural, an extension of the ethereal, almost in order to bring those things into this physical, material, political realm. And part of this process includes naming things. In esoteric tradition, and in different ways in biblical tradition as well, names are extremely important. Names, they can hold intention, they can hold power, they can hold prophecy within names, they can hold all sorts of, again, these spiritual truths, assumptions, intentions, things like that. So Palantir, I'm going to read this straight from the wiki for a second. Oh, the heaviest cat in the world just jumped on me again. Okay. A Palantir is one of several indestructible crystal balls from J.R.R. Tolkien's epic fantasy novel, The Lord of the Rings. The word comes from something. I'm not going to try to go through the etymology of J.R.R. Tolkien's language thing. That's a whole thing. The Palantirs, the crystal balls, were used for communication and to see events in other parts of Arda or in the past. The Palantirs were made by the elves. Yes, okay, we're going to get some fantasy stuff here. A major theme of the Palantir usage is that while the stones show real objects or events, those using the stones had to possess great strength of will and of mind to direct the stone's gaze to its full capacity. The stones were an unreliable guide to action, since what was not shown could be more important than what was selectively presented. A risk lay in the fact that the users with sufficient power could choose what to show and what to conceal to other stones. In The Lord of the Rings, a Palantir has fallen into the enemy hands, making the usefulness of all other existing stones questionable. So even in this fairly vague, fantastical description, you have an object that can see everything, can see into the past, can see into the present, can see anywhere, hear anything, giving the owner, the user of the device, in some ways, limitless power. But the trick is staring into the Palantir, seeing what is happening on the other side, doesn't always work out the way the user wants because of selective visions, I guess, selective information. I think it's kind of ironic in the case of Lavender and the Israeli targeting system. The mistakes that can be made by selectively presenting the information that can be divined is a core part of the storyline in The Lord of the Rings. And there's a few examples there. I don't know how deep into The Lord of the Rings we want to get. But let me grab a couple of these things here. Oh, I should have highlighted them. A single Palantir enabled its user to see places far off or events in the past. A person could look into a Palantir to communicate with anyone looking into another Palantir. They could then see visions of the things in the mind of the person looking into the other stone. The stones were made of dark crystal. They were indestructible. They ranged in size. Okay, let me scroll down a little bit. Here's an interesting analysis they do here. The wielder of great power, such as Sauron, could dominate a weaker user through the stone, which was the experience of Pippin Took and Saruman. Even one as powerful as Sauron could not make the Palantirs lie or create false images. The most he could do was selectively display truthful images to create a false impression in the viewer's mind. In The Lord of the Rings, 3 such uses of the stone are described, and in each case, a true image is shown, but the viewer draws a false conclusion from the facts. And it goes into some Lord of the Ring examples of that. Yeah. So you got these Silicon Valley guys. Now remember, it's Alex Karp and Peter Thiel famously is involved. Yes, that Peter Thiel, the co-founder of PayPal, buddies with Elon, etc., etc. And kind of, interesting recent conservative figure. Oh, not to mention Peter Thiel, the single-handed funder and victory bringing buddy of JD Vance. JD Vance, one of the kind of inconvenient facts about the guy was he worked for Peter Thiel for a while, then got into politics, and Peter Thiel funded his entire rise to politics. And so it's always been a pretty, I guess, obvious comment to make that JD Vance owing everything to Peter Thiel being sort of a famous technocrat, at least Silicon Valley bro, big brother, I don't know, conjurer of the Palantir type of fella. I mean, there's so rarely do we get such a prime example of both predicted and unpredicted dystopian, I guess, conquerors as Peter Thiel. Of course, we can throw Elon in there. We can throw a few people in there. But Peter Thiel is one of the big ones. And to name the company Palantir specifically from Lord of the Rings, obviously, immediately trying to make an illusion, make a connection, say, hey, our technology will allow you to see anything. It'll allow you to look into the void, look into the past. We'll collect everybody's data. We will present it to you. It'll, you'll be all powerful like Sauron or Saruman. I mean, it's a pretty impressive thing. And it might sound sort of diabolical and sinister to us, but we're not billionaires. We're not people trying to control populations and bring the human race into the next sort of chapter of its existence, the technocratic dystopia foretold in scriptures past. That's not us. It's not for us, okay? It's for them. It is for the lizard people. And I'll tell you what, the lizard people love that sort of thing. We all know it. But it's ironic, isn't it? That, and this happens all the time. When you go into specifically the naming of Palantir, you can immediately say at first glance, wow, look at that. They're referencing some nerd stuff. Nerds love nerd stuff. Reference the nerd stuff. It'll make you all powerful. You can see into the present, into the past. You can become all powerful through knowledge. Hello, Gnosis. I don't know if you guys can hear my cat, but Gnosis is a pretty funny cat name. It's not the name of my cat, but the timing just couldn't help it. But built into the Palantir mythos or ethos or whatever you want to call it is inherent deception, not in spite of the Palantir, but because of the Palantir. The Palantir itself, several times in the book, or in the books, is used specifically to deceive. An object meant to tell the truth. An object that inherently reveals hidden things and makes one, keeps one abreast of knowledge that could not otherwise have attained, has this dark underside where it is almost exclusively used to deceive not just everyone, but the ones who use it. And so I want to not start out, I'm far past starting, but I think we should keep this in mind as we dive a little bit deeper into Palantir and MAGI-KARP. By their very own naming convention, they are deceiving themselves. But MAGI-KARP in particular, I think, shows, I think we've been looking forward into what is the world going to look like. Not just what is our daily lives, what is the technology, what is the politics, but even more than that, what is the paradigm going to be? We're not used to our paradigm shifting so drastically as it is currently doing or about to do. And by paradigm, I mean the very foundation on which we compare things. Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative. We're humans. We compare things. We categorize things. But what really upends the whole population as well as the individual. Remember, the spiritual war is fought in the individual spiritual battles. Sorry, audio listeners, I don't know if you can hear that. The fattest cat in the world is climbing up on my chair. He's putting on a show. So, onward with Palantir, and we'll dig in. This is, New York, here we go. This is coming from New York Times. Let me get this up on the screen for y'all. Boop. Nope, that's not it. Here you go. Now this is kind of a screwed up page, so excuse me. It's the New York Times, so I had to hack the mainframe to be able to get it. The headline is, Trump taps Palantir to compile data on Americans. Okay, great. In March, President Trump signed an executive order calling for the federal government to share data across agencies, raising questions over whether he might compile a master list of personal information on Americans that could give him untold surveillance and power. Now notice here on the New York Times, it says right there, raising questions over whether he might compile a master list of personal information that could give him untold surveillance power. A couple of things. Number one, It's raising questions over whether he might do this thing, which is compile a master list of personal information on Americans that could give him untold surveillance power. Meaning, again, their default is Trump as an individual, not the U.S. government as a whole, not the deep state, not the bureaucracy, not the powers of the world. No, no, no. It's just about Trump and his individual desires to rule the world. Folks, you go over onto X. Maybe I should do this right now. You go to X and you just search Palantir. You're going to get a bit of a different story. Now, this whole thing is sort of kids in a candy shop for the Democrats, because they get to point out, oh, all you Trump supporters, were you thinking that he was going to build a list and keep a big brother database of all your information? Is this what you wanted? And look, I think that's a fair thing. We need to be intellectually honest and recognize that that is a totally fair question. Now, the assumption that Trump's supporters sorry, this cat just stabbed me. Ow. The assumption that the Trump supporters wouldn't be against this, or that they wouldn't be of the capability to question Trump's, plans or actions because they're a cult. They're a cult, I say. I'm trying to bring this up here. Let me bring it up. Come on now. Give me what I want. Okay, so here's just some examples. From the Patriot Voice. Oh, you know what? Oh no. Guns, distract everybody while I get this. Move it from that browser. Put it in this browser. Go. Put it on the screen. Okay, I'm going to do this. I have not proofread this here, but this will give you an example. Trump has tapped Palantir to create an entire database of all American citizens. It brings me no pleasure at all to inform you that Donald Trump is actively working with the very same deep state he claimed he would obliterate to create the largest surveillance database of Americans ever created. This plan is in lockstep with the UN Agenda 2030 goals and the WEF Fourth Industrial Revolution. MAGA, if you are observing this from afar and holding on to any semblance of hope that Trump is who he said he was, sadly, it's time to wake up to a brutal realization. Trump is constructing the New World Order, just as I unfortunately suspected he has been over the past couple of months since his inauguration. And this news confirms that. It goes on and on and on. Now, this is not an unreasonable response, but I see some subtle twists and turns here that are the exact twists and turns that allowed for this to happen in the first place. And that is because this person is still working within the previous paradigm of globalist versus Republicans, basically. You can call it nationalists, you can do these things, and maybe that's more fair. But when it comes down to it, it was globalist Klaus Schwab lizard people versus patriots of the United States. And this, I fear, and I see happening right now, is a mistake to keep this story and the stories that are coming in that paradigm. I will get to the details of that in a second. Back to the New York Times. By the way, the New York Times broke this story, and you just heard what that X person said. I mean, giving it the full Alex Jones treatment, right? And all of this comes from this New York Times story in which they say, raising questions whether he might compile a master list. Mr. Trump has not publicly talked about the effort since. Talking about since March. But behind the scenes, officials have quietly put technological building blocks into place to enable his plan. In particular, they have turned to one company, Palantir, the data analysis and technology firm. The Trump administration has expanded Palantir's work across the federal government in recent months. The company has received more than $113 million in federal government spending since Trump took office, according to public records, including additional funds from existing contracts, as well as new contracts with the Department of Homeland Security and the Pentagon. Quote, parenthetical, this does not include $795 million contract that the Department of Defense awarded the company last week, which has not been spent. The representatives of Palantir are also speaking to at least two other agencies, the Social Security Administration and the Internal Revenue Service, about buying its technology, according to 6 government officials and Palantir employees with knowledge of the discussion. The push has put a key Palantir product called Foundry into at least 4 federal agencies, including DHS and the Health and Human Services Department, widely adopting Foundry, which organizes and analyzes data, paves the way for Mr. Trump to easily merge information from different agencies, the government officials said. Creating detailed portraits of Americans based on government data is not just a pipe dream. The Trump administration has already sought access to hundreds of data points on citizens and others through government databases, including their bank account numbers, the amount of their student debt, their medical claims, and any disability status. Now, here's something to remember. Palantir is just a company, and what do companies do is they sell products. And there's a handful of products that Palantir mainly sells. And the one mentioned here is Foundry. And Foundry, you know, when you start to get the description of these products, it starts to tell a little bit of a different story, or at least present it in a different way than just Palantir becoming the big brother, data collection, blah, blah, blah. Because remember, one thing that is a little frustrating when watching this, watching all the responses, watching all the theories, is it seems that people have forgotten that every single piece of information you have is already accessible by the government. And it's not just that the government actually records that data, although they do, we know this through the NSA. But most of the data that the government, the CIA, the intelligence agencies, these other things work with, all this information is already recorded and is already available commercially. You can go buy this data right now. If you had the money, you could go buy all of the data that the government has on you. And in this case, there's no extra data being collected. Palantir is not collecting extra data on behalf of the government or on behalf of any government. But what they have done is create a product, in this case Foundry, which is very simple. It's almost laughably simple. And all it does is just a dashboard. You take whatever data you have access to, you plug it into this dashboard, and it parses the data for you. And this has been going on a long, long time. Palantir's product is just a data organization software, which is interesting to think through when we start getting the details of what the New York Times is suggesting Trump is trying to do. which is put all your information in one place. Well, what they're talking about is these various government agencies are purchasing for $1 million, by the way. It is a flat rate $1 million to get Foundry in your institution. A flat $1 million gets you this dashboard. And then from there, it's the government that is attaching all of its data that it already has on you to this dashboard. Now, that doesn't make it any less sinister necessarily, but it is not out of step with what Trump has been promising to do. The words that he would use in this case is that this is going to bring efficiency to the government. And that is why folks like myself have always been holding to the conclusion that we don't know if we necessarily want the government to be efficient. I mean, this sort of the like libertarian angle on this is how efficient do you want the government to be? Because sure, you take information from a dozen different government agencies, where before, if someone wanted to, if you were being investigated or they were putting a dossier on you or something, a guy would have to go to the IRS, request your information. The guy would have to go to whatever, DHI or whatever it is. He would have to go to these several different agencies individually and request the information. And then the guy would put the information together into a dossier, and then boom, there you go. They continue. And in a way, this inefficiency kind of served as a filter. They would have to prioritize investigations, prioritize putting together dossiers, prioritize bringing information together. Because you got to pay a guy to do that. And it takes a lot of time. That's bureaucracy for you. But here, now, every individual government agency that purchases the Foundry software instantly has sort of AI access to analyze all the data that is available. And so that's what this Foundry product is doing. I don't personally see, I'm kind of both sides of this. I don't like this. In fact, my whole career, for 12, 13 years, episode 1 of Canary Cry Radio, we talked about this exact thing. Back when, and this is hard to communicate and it's hard to imagine a time before we all knew that Facebook was spying on us. There was a time when the craziest conspiracy theory that you could talk about online was that Facebook was spying on you. And people who are of a certain age, you think back, you'll remember this. The Edward Snowden days. The idea that you clicking a button on your computer is being recorded by Facebook and passed on to the government was like eye-rollingly tinfoil hat, shunned from society level conspiracy theory. Now, of course, that just sounds silly now. There's no new data being collected, but there is, what other data could there be? There is no, I'm saying there's no data that exists that isn't being collected on you. And not only collected, but bought and sold 100 times a day. And the government already makes a practice of purchasing all this data. It happens all the time. But now, to make the government more efficient, they're going to buy a dashboard. Ooh, a dashboard that will let them easily look at this data. It's kind of connected to this weird social engineering psyop that has been taking hold and has been taking center stage recently, where suddenly everybody's a conspiracy theorist. Doesn't matter who you are. Nobody believes, nobody trusts the institutions, nobody believes the mainstream news. Everybody's aware of everything going on. Doesn't matter if you're the left or the right, a Democrat, Republican, none of it matters. Everybody's skeptical. Everybody's a conspiracy theorist. And I see this being purposefully injected into the common normie parlance. Because with this Palantir thing, yeah, it's not great. I know, like, this is efficient. I guess they said they're going to be efficient, and now they're being efficient. Look at them go. But they're not going to know anything that they don't already have access to. On the bright side, maybe this does wake some people up who weren't taking it seriously. Let's read some more of this. Representatives of Palantir are also speaking to at least 2 other agencies. We talked about that. The push has put a key Palantir product called Foundry onto at least 4 federal agencies, including DHS and the Health and Human Services Department, widely adopting Foundry, which organizes and analyzes data, paves the way for Mr. Trump to easily merge information from different agencies, the government official says. Again, I love the idea that it's just Trump, like Trump's master plan. As if he didn't have a legacy, an army of lizard people, technocrats who are guiding these decisions. Creating detailed portraits of Americans based on government data is not just a pipe dream. No, it's been going on for 15 years. The Trump administration has already sought access to hundreds of data points on citizens and others through government databases, including their bank account numbers, the amount of their student debt, their medical claims, and any disability status. Mr. Trump could potentially use such information to advance his political agenda by policing immigrants and punishing critics. What do these people think has been going on for the past 10 years? In fact, let's just get into it now, shall we? First of all, okay, we're going to dive into this more here in a sec. Let me do this. Let's start talking about MAGI-KARP. We've talked about Peter Thiel. Everybody knows Peter Thiel, yada, yada, yada. I'm not going to give you another lesson on Peter Thiel. You don't need it. Because what you really need is a lesson on MAGI-KARP. MAGI-KARP does not get the same attention that Peter Thiel does. And in my opinion, he needs to be, doesn't even matter what my opinion is. The fact of the matter is that he's getting more attention now. This dude says some of the craziest stuff on camera. We'll get that in a second. Let me roll this. In case you're wondering how long Palantir has been doing the exact thing that the New York Times is saying that Trump is gonna do. Watch out. Here is MAGI-KARP sometime between 2020 and now.
Look, we built PG, which single-handedly stopped the rise of the far right in Europe. We built Foundry, which was used to distribute the COVID vaccine and saved millions of lives globally. We built what we call multi-constellation, and what's often called the digital kill chain. And they're category-defining products. So when you deliver these products to the market, just honestly, people say this isn't going to exist, this isn't valuable, but then it changes the market. And then the market is the Palantir market. Now, that doesn't mean everyone in the world is going to buy our product, but it means most of the sensible people in the world are going to buy from the category we defined.
Did you catch some of the crazy stuff in there? Let me play this part again.
Look, we built PG, which single-handedly stopped.
By the way, PG, as far as I can tell, is a name that they use for their product called Gotham. We'll get into Gotham in a second.
Look, we built PG, which single-handedly stopped the rise of the far right in Europe. We built Foundry, which was used to distribute the COVID vaccine and saved millions of lives globally. We built what we call multi-constellation, and what's often called the digital kill chain. And
what? So talking about Gotham that killed the far right in Europe. They're talking about, I think it was Foundry, that distributed the COVID-19 vaccine information, or not the information, but the actual tracking of the thing. And then something called a digital kill chain? I don't even know what that digital kill chain piece was, but it doesn't sound great.
look, we built PG, which single-handedly stopped the rise of the far right in Europe. We built Foundry, which was used to distribute the COVID vaccine and saved millions of lives globally. We built what we call multi-constellation, and what's often called the digital kill chain. And they're category-defining products. So when you deliver these products to the market, just honestly, people say this isn't going to exist, this isn't valuable, but then it changes the market. And then the market is the Palantir market. Now, that doesn't mean everyone in the world is going to buy our product, but it means most of the sensible people in the world are going to buy from the category we defined.
He says he's basically saying we invented the take over the world industry. That's what they did. From COVID vaccine stuff to taking out the far right in Europe to digital kill chain. None of this existed, and everybody thought we are stupid for doing it. But now we own the world. We own the industry. It's not the spying industry. It's the Palantir industry. And he says it with such glee. I mean, he should, because he's a gajillionaire, and it's not just about the money. This guy saw the same thing we all saw. Canarians, if you've been around for any amount of time, many of you, most of you at this point, have been with us since 2012. All of the worst predictions, and by worst I mean best, but scariest predictions that we have been making since 2012 are all accomplished in Palantir. It didn't exist. The industry didn't exist. The technology didn't exist. Heck, the desire, or at least the idea that it could be real, didn't exist until these guys came around. And so it's pretty much, if you have had any interest in the technocracy and the dystopia and the beast system, in transhumanism and any of this stuff, Palantir is the central focus point of this and has been for a very long time. Remember, when it comes to social engineers, they don't really care about what you think. It has nothing to do with making you believe a lie just to control the information. In the end, it's about controlling how you feel. Because how you feel controls your behavior. So this idea that, oh no, Trump is tapping Palantir, and Palantir, the government's going to know everything and put it all in one place, and it's going to blah, blah, blah. What a new, fresh hell we've been subjected to. This isn't new. None of this is new. None of this is just Trump. This is principalities and powers. And what you're seeing here is disclosure. This is almost simply just a disclosure. UFOs weren't invented on the day that Congress came out and said there's UFOs. We talk about AI technology, and by the time it comes to the consumers, the government is 10 or maybe even 20 years ahead. Palantir has been using this AI data processing, data organization stuff since like 2009. But the technology isn't even the most interesting part to us, okay? We all know this. We know how this is. I'm only telling you guys stuff you already know, okay? So getting wrapped up in the technology is so scary is so counterproductive, okay? They're trying to scare us into focusing on Trump making a list, okay? Oh no, I didn't know the government could know every single thing about me. I didn't know they could do that. What are they going to do now that they can do that? No. That's where they want us to go with this. They obviously also are making a concerted effort to turn people against Trump. Now remember, not a Trump guy, not a Trump supporter, if that's something that triggers people. We have, for years, explored the role that Trump may be playing in the end times scenario, as is foretold. Okay? However, this very well executed psyop to make it sound, to try to convince conservatives that, like, for the first time ever, we've never seen this before, a government will have all your information. What are they going to do with it? What could they possibly want to do with it? That's control of emotions. That's control for political reasons. This is control for separation of groups of people. This is social control to cause animus between family members and friends. Their hope, I think it's quite obvious, their hope is that some Trump supporters would be so beholden to supporting Trump that they would support him. You know, how they say on the news that the MAGA cult will just support whatever Trump wants. And lo and behold, I haven't seen one MAGA person support Trump on everything. But that's almost neither here nor there, except for it has very obviously revealed a split in the conservative side of things. And I want to play this clip here. This is from Alex Jones. He's talking to Nick Fuentes here, which is I don't know much about that guy, but here's this.
Grok is interesting. I'm more concerned about this suite of companies, though, like Palantir, which is they're feeding all of the data over to Palantir so they can manipulate it with algorithms. And they're everywhere. They're looking at the wastewater during the COVID pandemic.
But you're back to this. I've looked at the scale of Palantir, and it's tiny compared to DeepSeek and all these others and ChatGPT. And I'm not like defending Peter Thiel. I'm just saying it's like, I get it from the liberals and the, Israel obsessed, whatever you want to call it. So, just Palantir.
They have an enemies list. They have an enemies list of 2 to 3 million people that they've identified as potential violent extremists. And this is being run by Alex Karp. Alex Karp said his biggest fear is that Christian nationalists will take over the government and throw him out of a window, defenestrate him because he's Jewish. He's running Palantir. Palantir has an enemies list of 3 million people.
So Alex Karp doesn't like you?
I don't think so. I don't know him, but probably not.
But you don't want to throw him out of a window?
I don't want to throw him out of a window. But I don't think he should control Palantir. I don't think he should control military procurement. That's my concern. And Peter Thiel, I mean, he's a suspicious character also. He says he's a Christian, but he's a gay man. He says he's a Christian, but he's really involved with this Rene Girard, who's sort of an interesting philosopher who's involved with a lot of the Straussians out there at the Hoover Institute. So these are two guys I don't
Yeah, Karp's got a degree, basically, in classical Western civilization.
But what is Western to these people? You know, according to Harry Jaffa, Western means protecting Israel. And that's who they're all.
And van der Leyden said that too.
So those are a few very interesting things. Now, I don't, you know, I I love how sewer surveillance made it into the conversation. Of course, that's very important to us because I didn't think anybody else was paying attention to that. And yes, the sewer surveillance is a part of the Palantir data that they have access to. I mean, if the data exists, if the information exists, they have access to it. Whether it's I believe the sewer surveillance is being taken through either the CDC or Health and Human Services, something like that. So it should make no surprise that that can be included in Palantir data. Now, what was the other part he said in there? Oh, yeah, let's talk about Alex Karp. He mentioned how he feared Christian nationalists taking over the country. He had several points on that point. You know what? Let me play the first 30 seconds.
Grok is interesting. I'm more concerned about this suite of companies, though, like Palantir, which is they're feeding all of the data over to Palantir so they can manipulate it with algorithms. And they're everywhere. They're looking at the wastewater during the COVID pandemic.
So you're back to this. I've looked at the scale of Palantir, and it's tiny compared to DeepSeek and all these others and ChatGPT. And I'm not like defending Peter Thiel. I'm just saying it's like I get it from the liberals and the Israel obsessed, whatever you want to call it. So, just Palantir.
They have an enemies list. They have an enemies.
He's getting it from the Israel's obsessed, whatever you want to call it, not defending Palantir. Now, I'm not sure if Alex Jones actually knows what Palantir is because he's talking about it as if it's just another AI model, as if it's another Grok or another DeepSeek. I thought that was strange, and I don't know how anyone could think that, and I don't know what to think about Alex saying this sort of thing. Now, I will say, from what I can tell, Alex is trying to push against this other fella. What's this guy's name? Nick. So, who knows what's going on in that clip. But to think it's just another AI model is just, I don't know, it's just so erroneous that it seems weird to me. But back to the Alex Karp, because even Alex Jones is like, I don't know, I'm not trying to defend Peter Thiel, but it's kind of the tech something. I don't know. I don't know what the connection there is. I imagine Alex has some things he's trying to navigate as far as supporting Trump and the powers that are behind Trump. I mean, it's clear, it's well known that the Silicon Valley Peter Thiel is, that's why JD Vance is in the White House, both from funding for his earlier political office all the way to the influence that had him chosen as the vice president. But it goes to this Alex Karp fella. We'll get into this here right now. Let me play you this.
Speaking of the beast system, beast system.
That's right, beast system. Okay, let's jump in here. We're going to start. Look, this is weird, okay? Wikipedia, we know Wikipedia. This is not the arbiter of truth. We know for a fact intelligence agencies have made a practice and a daily, a daily thing on the to-do list to monitor and manipulate, but have a pretty significant amount of control over what arrives on Wikipedia. So remember, everything I'm about to read about Alex Karp, by definition, is CIA approved. So we'll keep that in mind when trying to figure this guy out, because there has never been a more confusing individual that I can think of than Alex Karp. Alexander Karp is an American businessman and co-founder and CEO of software firm Palantir Technologies. He began his career investing in startups and stocks and co-founded Palantir with Peter Thiel in 2003. In 2025, Time magazine named him the Time 100 list of the world's most influential people. Hey, look at that timing. In 2025, his net worth has at times exceeded 12 billion, ranking him amongst the wealthiest 300 people in the world. Great. Early life. Alexander Karp was born on October 2nd in New York City, the eldest son of Robert Joseph Karp, a Jewish clinical pediatrician, and Leah Janes Karp, an African-American artist. What a couple. He was raised with his younger brother, Oliver Ben Karp, in Philadelphia. Like his father, he attended Central High School and graduated in 1985. He has said he struggled with dyslexia from an early age. Oh. Karp earned his undergraduate degree, a bachelor's in philosophy, from Harvard College in 1989. Okay, check one, ding. Should I get the bell out for this? I'm probably going to need to get the bell out for this. Here you go. Harvard. He then went on to earn a Juris Doctor from Stanford Law School in 1992. At Stanford, Karp met Peter Thiel. Gonzo would be losing his mind right now. After his undergraduate studies in law school, Karp earned a PhD in neoclassical social theory from Goethe University in 2002. Doctoral thesis, supervised by Carola Brede, was titled, I'll skip to the English translation, Aggression in the Life World, the Extension of Parsonson's Concept of Aggression by Describing the Connection between Jargon, Aggression, and Culture. He's a neoclassical social theorist. He's a social engineer from Harvard, Stanford, and then writes about aggression in the life world, the extension of Parsons's concept of aggression by describing the connection between jargon, aggression, and culture. He is a full-on social engineer with a focus in aggression, jargon being language, and culture. Karp started his career as a research associate at Sigmund Freud Institute in Frankfurt. Karp has said he invested in startup stocks after receiving an inheritance from his grandfather. His success led him to found London-based money management firm Caedmon Group to manage the money of high net worth individuals who were interested in investing with him. Not trying to make any other connections, but it kind of seems similar to what like Epstein was doing, just managing other people's money. In 2004, along with Peter Thiel, who had been a classmate at Stanford and others, he co-founded Palantir Technologies as CEO. The New York Times ranked Karp at the highest paid CEO of a publicly traded company in 2020, the year the company went public. The year the company went public, started in 2003, went public in 2020. That's 17 years. The first year that the company went public, he ranked as the highest paid CEO of a publicly traded company. In 2024, he was, it says here, is like a 1,143rd on the Forbes annual world's billionaires list with a net worth of $2 billion. Oh, so he was worth $2.9 billion last year. Well, that's interesting. All right, last year, he was worth $2.9 billion. In 2025, his net worth increased by several billion dollars, at times exceeding $11 billion and ranking him amongst the 300 wealthiest. So it's a little bit lower than the number they gave before, which was $12 billion. So he made $9 billion last year. All right. Social engineer. Sigmund Freud, Harvard, Stanford, Sigmund Freud School. What else was there? All the hits, right? For a social engineer, magician, intelligence guy. So who is he? Let's get to his political views. What is he thinking? What does he stand for? He's obviously the most powerful guy in the world, if you consider knowledge is power, and Palantir not only has access to all the data in the world, but has the ability to parse it and deploy it in helpful ways. In 2025, Time magazine listed KARP as one of the world's 100 most influential people. Man, he is having a good year, huh? Pretty good year, Alex. Calling him, quote, the embodiment of a new kind of Silicon Valley billionaire, an unashamed techno-nationalist who evangelizes Western power. Now, folks, everything that I've told you up until now makes sense. And this makes sense too. It's going to make more sense. Not only is it going to make more sense about who he is, it's going to make more sense about where we are. This exact moment in history and the transition that will be completed by next year. This is it. This is the road sign. You're looking at the map. What are things going to look like in the next couple of years? This is what they are going to look like. Alex Karp unlocked everything that we have been analyzing, predicting, coming to, whatever. The confusion, the confounding in culture, the shifting paradigm, what even will be the paradigm in the near future. Alex Karp is the answer to all of it. Let me go on. In naming him to the Time 100 list, the magazine noted that in a letter, let me put this up on screen here for you. You might as well. Sorry about that. So you guys can read along at home, folks. Oh, except for it's so tiny. Let me see if I can make it bigger for you. All right. In naming him to the Time 100 list, the magazine noted that in a letter to investors, Karp quoted Samuel P. Huntington's The Clash of Civilizations. Quote, the rise of the West was not made possible by the superiority of its ideas or values or religion, but rather by its superiority in applying organized violence. Karp wrote, so there, that's kind of something you'd hear maybe mostly on the left. You know, if the left is you know, they say that about white people, is that they're good at organizing violence. That's their thing. People say it about the West, you know, the white people in the West, they're violent and they take over the world. That's why they're so good at organizing the violence, right? So it kind of sits as a standard kind of leftist thing to say. Karp wrote that, quote, Westerners often forget this fact. Non-Westerners never do. In 2024, the New York Times quoted Karp saying he and his company Palantir have, quote, a consistently pro-Western view that the West has a superior way of living and organizing itself. So by his own quotes, now look, I'm not going to piece together things that somebody says from, you know, years apart or whatever, but they're right here on Wikipedia building the mentality of this guy, saying he's talking about the West is the best because they're good at organizing violence. And then he has a consistently pro-Western view, which means he's sort of positive about this organized violence. Which makes a lot of sense if you think about Palantir's role in Lavender and other Israeli AI targeting systems, which Palantir explicitly is organizing data for the purpose of targeting violence in the one westernized Middle Eastern country that is Israel. And the West has a superior way of living and organizing itself. on U.S. politics. Hold on, folks. Buckle your seatbelts. Karp has described himself as a socialist and a progressive, and said he voted for Hillary Clinton. He has condemned woke ways of thinking, calling them the central risk to his company, Palantir. The central risk to his data AI panopticon big brother company is woke ways of thinking, and to the United States as a whole. Karp has called Palantir a, quote, counterexample to companies he considers woke. So he's a socialist, he's a progressive, but he's anti-woke on the United States government. He said that technology companies like Palantir have an obligation to support the U.S. military. Karp has said that he and Palantir are, quote, active in defending the values of the West and, quote, our belief that the West is a superior way to live. He has defended Palantir's contract with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement during the controversy over family separations, saying that while separations are, quote, a really tough, complex, jarring moral issue, he favors, quote, a fair but rigorous immigration policy. He has said the United States government should have a strong hand in tech regulation and that Western companies should dominate AI research. So he's a socialist, a progressive, anti-woke, pro-Western patriot type, closed borders patriot type. If your neck is starting to hurt, it's because of the whiplash. Now, there's a couple options here, and it does not stop there. There's a couple options here. Either there's a concerted effort, again, like Kanye, like Trump, to zigzag so often and so drastically that it serves as some sort of defense, that he cannot be categorized. Because that's one thing about these megalithic figures, Trump, Kanye, Alex Karp, is that any attempt to put them solidly in a category is instantly thwarted by literally the very next thing that they do. And it takes a special kind of brainwashing to consider either of these guys, any of these guys, solidly in one category of the paradigm. But Palantir, Alex specifically, you think about the power that Palantir has. You can go to the President of the United States, you can go to the Elon, you can go to the CEO of any company. Alex Karp might be the literal most powerful man in the world. Because through Palantir, he's the one parsing all the data, interpreting all the data. You don't think he has the ability? He is a social engineer. He is a learned, lifelong devotee to social engineering. Harvard, Stanford. He taught, he's worked at the Sigmund Freud Institute. He was a research associate at the Sigmund Freud Institute. You know, Sigmund Freud, whose nephew was Edward Bernays, who invented advertising, who his nephew founded Netflix. There's not only, there is a spiritual legacy here that makes this man very strange. Now, I don't think, it could be that he's zigzagging for some sort of defensive purpose. But I think there's another option. The other option is that he reflects what the future paradigm categories are going to be. We're not going to be thinking liberal or conservative. And I'm talking like in the next year. We're not going to be talking liberal and conservative, Democrat, Republican. Whatever Alex is going to be one side of the paradigm. The other side of the paradigm, I believe, is going to be something called abundance liberals, abundance Democrats, but that's for another show. I haven't been able to bring that one quite yet. Okay, let me jump over to some other stuff. Let's keep looking at Alex here. Let's jump over to Forbes. Now, let me point something out. 2020, it goes public. 2024, 2023, he's helping out in Israel-Gaza conflict. 2024, he's this. 2025, top influential guy. Highest paid CEO ever in 2020. You know, it's all happening for Alex right now. It's almost like we're coming to the time, the age of Alex. The age of MAGI-KARP. And a lot of people are thinking, oh my gosh, Palantir, oh, they're doing the code. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. What a time we live in. Can you believe the 2020s are just so crazy with the data and the tech and the. This article is from 2013 from Forbes. How a deviant philosopher built Palantir, a CIA-funded mining juggernaut. Dun, dun, dun. Since rumors began to spread that a startup called Palantir helped to kill Osama bin Laden, MAGI-KARP hasn't had much time to himself. Have you heard that before? I hadn't heard that before. I hadn't heard that Palantir helped to kill Osama bin Laden. All this Palantir stuff seems really recent. Just like the technocrats, everybody's talking about technocracy now. Everybody seems to know what's going on with the technological overlords. Many of them are not even aware that it was a political party in 1920 and that Trump's plans for Mexico and Greenland are from plans from the 1920s by the technocrat party, the technate. Apparently, Palantir helped to kill Osama bin Laden. What was that? It was like 2014 or something. No, it must have been earlier than that because this thing is from 2013. All right. On one sun-baked July morning in Silicon Valley, Palantir's lean 45-year-old chief executive with a top-heavy mop of frazzled hair hikes the grassy hills around Stanford University's massive satellite antenna known as the Dish, a favorite meditative pastime. So we're getting a nice little Forbes little, puff piece on the guy. But then it goes to this. Karp's 24/7 security detail is meant to protect him from extremists who have sent him death threats and conspiracy theories, who have called Palantir to rant about the Illuminati. Schizophrenics have stalked Karp outside his office for days at a stretch. Quote, "It's easy to be the focal point of fantasies," he says. Quote, "if your company is involved in realities like ours." Palantir lives the realities of its customers, the NSA, the FBI, and the CIA. An early investor through its In-Q-Tel venture fund, along with an alphabet soup of other U.S. counterterrorism and military agencies, in the last 5 years, Palantir has become the go-to company for mining massive data sets for intelligence and law enforcement applications. With a slick software interface and coders who parachute into clients' headquarters to customize its programs, Palantir turns messy swamps of information into intuitively visualized maps, histograms, and link charts. Give its so-called forward-deployed engineers a few days to crawl, tag, and integrate every scrap of customers' data, and Palantir can elucidate problems as disparate as terrorism, disaster response, and human trafficking. Palantir's advisors include Condoleezza Rice and former CIA director George Tenet, who says in an interview that, quote, "I wish we had a tool of its power before 9/11. General David Petraeus, and most recent former CIA chief, describes Palantir to Forbes as, quote, "a better mousetrap when a better mousetrap was needed," and calls KARP sheer brilliant. We're going on like 15 years of Palantir being the center point of the largest and most impressive surveillance apparatus in human history. Among those using Palantir to connect the dots are the Marines, who've deployed its tools in Afghanistan for forensic analysis of roadside bombs and predicting insurgent attacks. The software, that's pretty impressive. The software helped locate Mexican drug cartel members who murdered an American customs agent and track down hackers who installed spyware on the computer of the Dalai Lama. In the book The Finish, detailing the killing of Osama bin Laden, author Mark Bowden writes that Palantir software actually deserves a popular designation, killer app. And now Palantir is emerging from the shadows. This is great. 2013. And now Palantir is emerging from the shadow world of spies and special ops to take corporate America by storm. The same tools that can predict ambushes in Iraq are helping pharmaceutical firms analyze drug data. According to a former JP Morgan Chase staffer, they've saved the firm hundreds of millions of dollars by addressing issues from cyber fraud to distressed mortgages. A Palantir user at a bank can in seconds see connections between a Nigerian internet protocol address, a proxy server somewhere within the US, and payments flowing out from a hijacked home equity line of credit. Just as military customers piece together fingerprints on artillery shell fragments, location data, anonymous tips, and social media to track down Afghani bomb makers. This is 2013. Here's the bottom line. A CIA-funded firm run by an eccentric philosopher has become one of the most valuable private companies in tech. Priced at between $5 and $8 billion in a round of funding the company is currently pursuing, this is 2013, KARP owns roughly a tenth of the firm, just less than the largest stakeholder, Peter Thiel, the PayPal and Facebook billionaire. Other billionaire investors include don't care. That puts KARP on course to become Silicon Valley's latest billionaire, and Thiel could double his fortune if the company goes public. And possibly KARP says Palantir is reluctantly considering. A possibility, KARP says Palantir is reluctantly considering. Of course, 7 years later, 2020, that's exactly what they did. So, let me jump. I don't know if you guys are hearing that static. If you are, I apologize. I don't know what is happening. Now, as far as this guy's weird category shattering, paradigm shifting, this man is the future of not just technology, of not just technocracy. I mean, he is all of those things. But he is the quintessential, the best example of the actual cultural shift, the culture war, the secret, underground, shadowy movements, the currents of culture, of not just ideas for individuals, but the ideas that individuals gather around. He is a social engineering magician, if there ever has been one. This is coming from an outlet called WashingtonMonthly.com. And when was this from? This was from March 2025, so this is recent. Before Alex Karp confounded Palantir Technologies, sorry, co-founded, not confounded, co-founded Palantir Technologies. Give me 1 second. Okay. Yes. Yes, good. The shadowy data analysis firm and defense contractor of which he is now the CEO. He wanted to be an academic social theorist. Now we're getting into the battle going on in academics. Because we know it's social theorists, we know it's academics, we know it's the elite class that sort of paddle the waters of culture, stirring them up, roiling them up, and causing movement in the greater sort of river or body of water that is culture. And unfortunately, that's a body of water that you and I are just drops in. And to think that the paddling of academics, social theorists, these types of people, has no effect on us mere drops of water would be giving them too much power. Because that's what that counts on. The system, this sort of system of influence, depends on us thinking that we are sort of masters of our own opinions. But pointing out and finding out and realizing that there's somebody up above in a boat sticking a piece of wood down and stirring things up around us, it's actually kind of the first step to being free from it. Upon graduating from Stanford Law School, where he befriended his eventual Palantir co-founder Peter Thiel, Karp enrolled in a PhD program at Goethe University Frankfurt. There, under the tutelage of specialists in Freudian psychoanalytic theory. This is his mentor. Was a specialist in Freudian psychoanalytic theory. The guy who is gathering all the data on you that there is, that exists, even data that doesn't exist, compiling it, weaponizing it, is a Freudian psychoanalysis inspired social engineer. He immersed himself in the thought of the Frankfurt School. And if you don't know what the Frankfurt School is, it is the collective of Marxian theorists and cultural critics who inspired student protest movements in the 60s. He's a Marxist on top of everything. It is unclear what led Karp to abandon his high-minded pursuits and build a company whose software has been used by ICE to track down suspected illegal immigrants for deportation by the U.S. military, to target drone strikes, and possibly by the Israeli Defense Forces to help develop kill lists, among other ethically fraught pursuits in the frontier of intelligence and warfare. Isn't that always how it goes, though? The Marxist, Freudian psychoanalysis types are the ones pulling these strings and these levers of war? Is that not how it's always been? What is certain is that today, Karp has ascended to a position on the world stage that his former student cohort could never imagine. Alex Karp is the new and, I think, improved Klaus Schwab. That is who this guy is. Klaus Schwab is out. Alex is in. I'm going to scroll down a bit because a lot of this we've gone over here. Let me go here. At the height of his power, Karp is using his platform to publish a scathing critique of the academic community he once aspired to join. Look at what we're seeing Trump do with Harvard. Alex's alma mater. Stanford, other Ivy League things. I don't know if Stanford's Ivy League, but you get the point. Elite educational academic communities. Keep that in mind. Everything that's going on. And not only with Trump acting upon the academic communities, but consider the cultural movement away from trust in the academics, away from trust in the establishments. Not least of which because of what has come to light about the, I don't know, deception. What's a better word? Corruption. The fake world that we've been living in, crafted for us by the academics, by the institutions, the illusion, the matrix. KARP, the new Klaus Schwab, possibly the better Klaus Schwab, the psychoanalyst, the social engineer, the king of the surveillance state. He's coming at the academic community. A scathing critique of the academic community he once aspired to join. It's kind of like, how Hitler wanted to be a painter? Alex Karp wanted to be an academic. The Technological Republic is the name of his book. Sorry, I had to put on chapstick. I mean, the Technological Republic, how is that not like a book Gons has written? Or how is that not a Face Like the Sun video? I bet you it will be. Co-written by KARP's Palantir deputy Nicholas Zamiska, argues that it's academics and other liberal elites, not KARP, who have betrayed their shared values. By abandoning the pursuit of truth in favor of problematizing the pro-West worldview. Remember this pro-West worldview. This is a huge part of this. Because remember, he's not just a Freudian social engineer. He's not just a Marxist. He's not just a progressive socialist. But he's also pro-Western. That's one of the biggest problems with the current and previous progressive party. This is why people have a problem with Democrats. This is why the Democrats are collapsing. They're collapsing because they were so anti-American, so anti-Western, so anti-everything that should be so normal to be in America. And this is really where the blue hairs lose everybody. This is where the Free Palestine people lose everybody. Is when they're burning American flags. That is why we're seeing such a huge shift. And here we are. Turns out, just happens to be that the literal most powerful social engineer in human existence feels the same way. By abandoning the pursuit of truth in favor of problematizing the pro-West worldview, they have discouraged generations of America's best and brightest from contributing to the national defense, and diverted precious technical talent to trivial endeavors, such as building algorithms that optimize placement of ads on social media platforms. Bro, this Alex guy is so trippy, man. Freudian Marxist social engineer, anti-woke, pro-West technocrat wants to get all the best and brightest in America to contribute to national defense, and is upset that these best and brightest are not working for Palantir in the military, but that they are building algorithms that optimize the placement of ads on social media platforms. He recognizes at a very fundamental level, that the academic movement towards focusing on things like advertisements and social media is destroying the country. How can you not agree with this guy? And this is where the paradigm shift is coming. This, in turn, has weakened the liberal world order in the face of rising authoritarian threat, particularly from China. Why would a man in KARP's position write an alienating, combative political treatise? On the surface, the book calls on academics to do what KARP believes he has done himself, and embrace a more forceful and pragmatic role in defending democracy. In their case, by strengthening rather than tearing down young Americans' sense of patriotic duty. But the argument KARP delivers is unlikely to convince them, so unlikely, in fact, that it raises the question of who KARP is truly speaking to. The Technological Republic begins with an assessment of Silicon Valley and channels KARP's leftist academic roots. The tech industry of the internet era, he says, allocates an incredible amount of financial and human capital to endeavors that contribute little to and often detract from the collective welfare. So it's like this sort of slightly anti-capitalist, there's the pro-Marxism bit. For KARP, the tech industry's finest moments came during World War II and the Cold War, when STEM talent partnered with the government, and especially the military, to pursue, quote, grand collectivist projects. Government initiatives such as the Manhattan Project and the Apollo program produced world-changing breakthroughs. In the private sector, companies like Fairchild Semiconductor turned government-funded research and military procurement work into the bedrock innovations of the modern internet. KARP views the modern tech industry, and especially big tech, as having abandoned this spirit of ambition and public purpose. The platform empires are built not on breakthrough innovations that lifted up the broader economy, but rather on the, quote, aggressive disruption of incumbents and the construction of new monopolies. They have not sought to solve humanity's great challenges, but rather to address the inconveniences of daily life for those with disposable income, such as getting a taxi or ordering takeout. The technological republic drips with disdain for a generation of companies, while draping themselves in the rhetoric of changing the world, have been content to, quote, sate the often capricious and passing needs of late capitalism's hordes. As China channels its resources towards strategic technologies, KARP is particularly concerned about China's advances towards intelligent drone swarms, which he believes represent the future of warfare. This complacency is no longer acceptable. This is an ironic bit to be included here, especially with KARP, because of Operation Spiderweb, which is the Ukrainian operation. Zelensky claims it took them 18 months to plan, and this just happened over the weekend. 18 months to plan, where the Ukrainian military loaded up box trucks with hundreds or thousands of drones, drove those box trucks into Russia, thousands of miles into Russia, launched those drones off of those box trucks deep in the Russian homeland, and caused an unimaginable amount of havoc to very precious military equipment to Russia. That's a story we didn't dive too deep into here, but it's all looped in. This is KARP's concern. Is this exact drone warfare that just happened? I mean, there's been drone warfare since the beginning of Ukraine conflict, but what we just saw over the weekend was true drone swarm, deep in the homeland destruction. This is what a technocrat is. A technocrat is not liberal. A technocrat is not conservative. A technocrat, in this case, is a Marxist social engineer who hates the liberal academic order, loves the military, loves patriotism, hates superfluous tech industry jibber jabber, social media ad placement technologies, and wants to divert all of that creative energy, all of that money, all of that patriotism into creating a panopticon military police state with America as its sort of monolithic power structure. Now it goes into this. How did we get here? The contrast KARP draws between the mid-20th century and the modern-day tech world provides an opportunity to reflect on structural economic changes that might have contributed to the slowdown he sees in innovation and ambition. Has the rise of the venture... Remember, technocrats are highly spiritual as well. Not in the way that you might be thinking. But they are highly attuned to the invisible. The principalities, the powers. They understand this. There would be no technocracy without an intimate understanding of the invisible forces that control what's going on in these realms that we live in. Has the rise of venture capital model, or more recently the dominance of a few incumbent players, encouraged founders to think small? KARP suggests that America has, quote, ceded too much control to the whims of the market. There's the Marxism coming in. And gestures vaguely at the need for a Manhattan Project for battlefield AI, as well as increased allocations to AI in the defense budget. Hello? What have we just seen with Trump? This has literally been Trump's MO the past few months. The enormous investment and allocation into AI and the defense budget. We're up to $1 trillion defense budget. It's the highest defense budget that we've ever had. Comes under Trump. But he declines to elaborate on these proposals. Yeah, maybe in his book. Not to Trump, though. The technological republic is not fundamentally interested in questions of political economy. It is interested in culture. It's all about culture. He is a social engineer. He's the most powerful man in the world. He controls all the data. You know, they say data is the new oil. And so you think, oh, a Saudi prince is rich and powerful. They control the oil. Yeah, except for one Saudi prince doesn't control all the oil in the world. Alex Karp does. And he's interested in culture. What set apart the technologists of the World War II and Cold War eras, Karp claims, was their mentality. These were not, quote, technical minds chasing trivial consumer products, but builders who, quote, aspired to see the most powerful technology of the age deployed to address challenges of industrial and national significance. The core promise of the technological republic is that this collectivist ethos was made possible by a strong sense of national identity, rooted in shared culture. What are we hearing from all the conservative and particularly religious mainstream alternative influencers? It's this. It's Gen Z is returning to Christianity for spiritual reasons and for cultural reasons. The liberal, do what thou wilt, hedonist, post-1960s, wishy-washy culture that has delivered on no promises, brought nothing but pain and depression and suffering for these kids. Really, I count all of us into this. Turning back towards patriotism, turning back towards traditional culture. Of course, I always make a difference between, you know, getting saved and becoming a Christian and just turning to Christian culture, Christian values. Let me grab that one again. The core premise of the technological republic is that this collectivist ethos is made possible by a strong sense of national identity, rooted in shared culture, the mythologies, religious beliefs, and common experiences, such as mandatory military service, that forged bonds between citizens and constituted their understanding of what it meant to be part of the American project. Does this sound like a golden age to anybody? But over the latter half of the 20th century, America's national identity faded. Improbably, Karp blames this entirely on efforts by the academic left to promote tolerance and inclusivity in higher education. This is exactly what we have been feeling coming on. When we see things, unusual things, like the anti-woke, I mean, even Trump just winning this last time, a total surprise. Who could have let this happen? Why did they let it happen? Why didn't they pull the strings, press the buttons? I suppose they did pull a trigger. You know how strange the past 6 months have been? To see the shift in culture, to see the cultural battles go in the direction that they have. I believe Alex Karp is at the top of this. Just a couple more things. Meanwhile, a more combative strain of intellectual reform sought to directly deconstruct the edifice of Western identity and knowledge. Karp picks on two prominent post-colonial scholars here, Kwame Anthony Appiah, who attacked the coherence of Western civilization as a march from Athenian democracy to the Age of Enlightenment, and Edward Said, whose 1978 tract Orientalism produced The Revolutionary. And Karp admits brilliant insight that productions of history and anthropology reflect power dynamics between speaker and subject. Said's influence was particularly profound, Karp writes, generating, quote, a new industry in American higher education built around dismantling colonial understandings of the world, which remade academia as a whole. Karp is fighting the same battle against the de-Westernization of colleges and academia, of institutions. And yet, he is this Marxist technocrat who loves military technology. All right, I'll do a little bit of that. I might skip this part, but to his credit, Karp's criticism of these academic challenges to the West, the instincts of post-war intellectuals towards diversification and deconstruction, is somewhat more nuanced than the familiar complaints of aggrieved campus conservatives. So they recognize here that Alex Karp has a more developed conservatism than, college kids, basically. Unlike his Palantir co-founder Peter Thiel, whose 1996 screed, The Diversity Myth, lambasts multiculturalism as anti-Western zealotry in disguise. Karp acknowledges that the intellectual projects of Appiah and Said had merit. Quote, the dismantling of an entire system of privilege was rightly begun, Karp writes. His gripe is that the generation of academics, the reformers, and especially Said, inspired, quote, failed to resurrect anything substantial, a coherent collective identity, or set of communal values in its place. So KARP is here to rebuild what his, other social engineer academics destroyed, basically, is what he's saying there. I'm going to skip this one. It's more sort of social academic jargon. Let me get in here because we'll finish it out. In the hands of more radical thinkers, KARP argues Said's insight that subjectivity, we've been talking about the postmodernism, the subjectivity, subjective truth, my truth, this sort of thing, the sickness that's gotten us where we are today. Is inherent in the production of knowledge about other cultures, was twisted into a belief that accurate descriptive knowledge of other cultures was not possible at all. This guy's total anti-woke, and therefore that comparative value judgments about different cultures was an inherently problematic and futile endeavor. How could Americans claim that their art, ethics, or social organization was superior to art, ethics, or social organization of another society from behind their American eyes? Borrowing a term popularized by the traditionalist historians of the Canon Wars era, KARP claims that cultural relativism became dogma in academia by the end of the 20th century, and from there permeated political institutions, journalism, Hollywood, and other bastions of the liberal elite. It became, KARP writes, the dominant form of elite establishment thinking. Do you see the danger here? Do you see the snake in the grass? This guy can get up and talk about liberal elites, talk about wokeism, talk about anti-Americanism, talk about pro-Westernism, talk about all the things that, say, a Trump supporter will love to hear. And behind it all is this social engineering, Marxist, technocratic state, included in the American exceptionalism. This is what we're seeing with Trump. This is what we see when he brings up what we would formerly call the North American Union, the technate, no borders between Mexico and Greenland and Canada and the U.S. This is a long spiritual lineage that has been at work for 100 years or more. And he's at the top of the world. And how in the world, with all the forces against Trump, how in the world would Trump win that election if it weren't for the most powerful technocrat, the master of data, the master of spying? We haven't even got into the spying. Alex Karp has been around the whole time. We have been distracted by the World Economic Forum. We have been distracted by Klaus Schwab. Klaus Schwab was a distraction. Alex Karp is the guy. I'm telling you now. All right, couple more bits here. We're almost done. As academia and the broader liberal establishment pull away from comparing cultures, Karp argues it ceased making normative claims about what America's shared culture should be. Yeah. It became uninterested in, or perhaps afraid of, articulating a positive vision of America's national identity. Hello? Certain segments became outright hostile to the idea of having one at all. Karp catches two high-profile academics in the act. The sociologist Richard Sennett, who pondered in the New York Times whether there might be, quote, ways of acting together without invoking the evil of a shared national identity. And the philosopher Martha Nussbaum, who castigated Americans' unique patriotic pride as morally dangerous and instead called for primary allegiance to the community of human beings around the world. It's globalism. How? How did we pull out of that nosedive? I mean, we've had longtime producers of this show stop producing, stop listening, stop being involved with the community because they are convinced, they are absolutely convinced that patriotic pride in being an American is morally dangerous. And we've lived with that for way too long. And now the pendulum swings in a way that we have never seen before. You see it on the street. You see it on TV. You see it in your PTO meetings. You see it in town halls. The water is churning. The tide is moving. And all of us little drops of water thinking that we're going the direction we're going because we wanted to. There's a guy in a boat and he's paddling around, and it's Alex Karp. The result, according to Karp, was that the generation of Americans raised in this intellectual environment developed no concept of being part of a worthy national endeavor and retreated into the pursuits of riches instead, whereas the mid-20th century technologists' sense of patriotic duty was fortified by their education. The education of Uber and Instagram founders had systematically stamped theirs out into the resulting void. Karp writes, quote, "The market rushed in with fervor. This generation, quote, knew what it opposed, what it stood against, and what it could not condone, but not what it was for." Ironically, the technological republic falls into a trap itself. And now the writer of this article picks out some problems with the book that they had, but I'll read this real quick. Karp concludes the book with what is essentially a call for academics and the liberal elite broadly to reject cancel culture and orthodoxy, one that resembles Thiel-style cultural warfare more than it resembles an original or constructive critique. In one eyebrow-raising passage, Karp appears to sympathize with a 1998 speech by German writer that rallied against what Karp describes as, quote, the yoke of an enforced remembrance of the Holocaust. This speech was also the subject of Karp's doctoral dissertation, although he did not condone it then. That's a weird thing to have included. The same time as Kanye, same time as Netanyahu, Palantir, participating in the AI targeting in Gaza, the outspoken support of Israel, and at the same time, referring to the yoke of an enforced remembrance of the Holocaust. You cannot figure this guy out. He's back and forth. My neck hurts. It's totally shattering the paradigm. This guy fits in nowhere. And yet he is at the top of everything. And he is trained. He's devoted his life to control the tides of culture. And by sitting at the top of the panopticon with the keys to the algorithms, not just the algorithms on a social media sense, but the algorithms that are now presenting data, translating data for government around the world. He has the back door, the keys to any data, any translation of data, anything that any of these governments, who even knows what they're seeing? You know, you get the DOD opening up their Foundry dashboard to look at what the data is telling them to do. The data is inherently a black box. That is what the need for Foundry is. We talk about the black box of AI, where we don't know why it comes to a conclusion. We don't even know if it's true. We don't even know if it's purposefully lying to us. We have no way to check it. That's what all these AI studies are about, all the AI nonsense about AI becoming sentient and lying to people and this kind of stuff. That's kind of how the Palantir data is. The reason that governments use the product is because the data is useless without the algorithms to interpret it. And this is the guy that has the keys to the back door of what the DoD would be looking at. It doesn't even matter what the data actually is. Whatever Foundry tells them is what they're going to act on. So there you go. Let me play another clip of Alex Karp. If you just want to get maybe a better idea of who this guy is, of what we might be dealing with on a personal level. You know, we've seen a lot of what he's written about. We kind of understand this wild character who is now possibly the most powerful man in the world, maybe ever. You know, you think of all of history. Has anyone had more power than the guy who controls the data for government? All governments? I don't know. Here's a little clip.
It's the most effective way for social change is humiliate your enemy and make them poorer. And that's how social change actually happens. And so I think we and then Palantir alumni really played a huge role in that.
You don't think this guy's interested in actually changing culture? You think this guy's just strictly interested in making money? You think he's doing it just for money? He talks like a social engineer. The best way to, defeat your enemies is to humiliate them and then take them out. There's another clip from an earnings call from Palantir earlier in this year where he talks about killing his enemies. This guy is something else. This guy is a piece of work, I'll tell you what. Don't underestimate him. And this Trump is going to make a thing. You know, he's going to let Palantir make a dossier on everybody. Look, I don't like it. I don't agree with it. But the idea that that hasn't already happened is so silly. All right, let's do this. How are we doing? How are we going? Oh, my. Oh, okay. 3 hours. Goodness gracious. Hey, right now, folks, you'll see in the description of the video, right at the top, we have another survey for this episode. Please do that. Hit the like button. Also, while you're at it, turn on the notifications if you haven't turned on the notifications. But look in the description right now. There's a link. It's a tiny.cc/846. 846 is the name of this episode. We got to get as many people as possible. Don't worry. It's super fast survey. It's very fun too. I was reading the survey stuff from the other people. People are having a ton of fun with it. It's only 5 questions, and 3 of the questions is like multiple choice. Super easy. And there's a couple questions where you can kind of expound if you want, but those ones aren't required. So don't take it because it's not going to, because it's going to take too much time or something. But it should be fun. A lot of people were having a blast taking it. I had a blast reading it. And it's super duper important for us, if you wouldn't mind doing that. You can do it now. You can do it after. It's also in the email on the newsletter. If you're not part of the newsletter, go ahead and join the newsletter by going to canarycry.party. That's the URL. And then you'll see the thing at the top, join the newsletter. Super easy, super cool. But yeah, taking that, I almost want to start sending out those surveys in the text message. That would be a little bit extra work, but it would be very good, fun to get that in the text message. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But yes, please go take that survey. I was thinking, I put it in the email. It might be fun. I don't know exactly. We'd have to, we maybe couldn't make it anonymous if we did this, but I thought it would be fun. I'm motivated enough that if we found some sort of way to honor or even reward people for being on survey streaks, that could be fun. And I know it's funny. I'm saying people had fun with it. I don't know what to tell you. I go in there, people had a blast with the survey. So if you wouldn't mind, please do that. You can either do it now, do it at the end, but just do it when you get the chance. Thank you. And we got a couple of other producers I want to thank who coming in with their time, their talent, their treasure. And it's really important. Hopefully this episode is not too disturbing. I find that when it's a solo mish, it's a little harder to kind of goof around. But I find it gets a little bit more serious, but hopefully there's something there. I don't know. I'm just trusting the Lord is doing what he does best and making something out of nothing here. So there you go. We have some producers came in, produced the show financially. Really appreciate that. I'm going to start out with a couple of people who joined the supply drop. If you don't know, go to canarycrysupply.com. The supply drop, look, we're on the value for value, which means you're not forced to do anything. You don't have to put any value into the show if you want. And we say value because value takes many forms. We call it time, talent, or treasure. We got people who help us out with stuff on the back end, help us do timestamps, help us post stuff, help us edit stuff. Really, it's just whatever is your gig, man. It's whatever you want to do, can do, are open to doing. It takes a ton of work to do this thing. And it's not just the show. I mean, there's the communities, there's there's the that. We've got mixtapes on Spotify. We've got so many things. And so, you know, a lot of times if somebody just has an idea, that would be cool. We just want to empower you to do that. So you can go to canarycry.support. If you scroll all the way to the bottom at that page, you'll see a form. You can fill out that form if you want to help us out with your time. And your talent, we have artists and musicians and people like that who create stuff for us. We've got a couple pieces today. And then if all else fails, treasure. Of course, it's obvious. I mean, you know, finances is an obvious thing that it takes to do something like this. That not only are there just a ton of costs that come along with doing all the different things we do, but also the ability to take the time. I mean, we're putting out content about 6 days a week now because we're firing up the Face Like the Sun channel's got content posting. We got flybys and interviews coming on Fridays. We've got Canary Cry Clubhouse on Thursdays. We've got CCNT on Monday and Wednesday. Pretty much, and then sometimes we'll be on somebody else's show on Tuesday. So it's like pretty much every day of the week. There's you know, if we had to go get a job, something would suffer, which, you know, hey, it's up to God. If that's what we need to do, that's what we need to do. But the people who financially support this show, they do it at their own volition. They do it at their own prompting of the Holy Spirit. And it's all about the understanding that it's the value for value model. It's divesting, much like MAGI-KARP would like to divesting from a piece of media being attached and beholden, to advertisers, because you offend an advertiser, they can take out your entire month of support in a second. You know, that's it. You say something wrong, you report on the wrong thing, you make a bad comment, you whatever. And that's that. That's how they take you out. That's how they've taken out so many other shows. That's one thing. but also just spiritually problematic. The thing that freaks me out is Alex Karp agreeing that the time, the energy, the culture, the ethos that has created the consciousness economy. They like calling it a knowledge economy or a service economy. You know, that's what. No. The United States especially, primarily, and of course online, is consciousness economy, meaning the foundational exchange of value, the foundational resource, the most base commodity is attention. And what is attention? Well, it's the focus of your mind. Okay, what is that? It's your consciousness. It's the very spark of life and aliveness. It's the breath of God that's been breathed into your lungs that separates you from the animals. That's what they're commoditizing when you advertise on a show, when they play an ad, when they do a read, when you whatever. Now, look, I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble. I'm just saying this is how we are. This is what we think. This is how we roll. And if that means anything to you, if there's any even deeper spiritual meaning to you and you appreciate not having your consciousness traded on some market like a ton of soybeans or something, then I encourage you to consider how much value do you get from the show. Everybody's value is different. Some get more, some get less. How often do you listen? How much, does it inform your worldview? How often do you quote stuff or repeat stuff you learned here with your friends, your family, whatever? That's all part of the equation, and everybody does their own equation. But the understanding is that if you get value, there's got to be value that goes back in, because that's just how the universe works. We can't run on nothing. But that value takes many forms. Like I said, your time, your talent, your treasure. Get involved in whatever way makes sense to you. Just pray, be sensitive to the Holy Spirit. He'll tell you what to do. And if you want to learn more, you can go to canarycry.support. But we got some people coming in supporting the show beneath that executive producer amount, like we said earlier. We got a couple people who came in, signed up for the supply drop. Supply drop is an excellent way to support the show regularly, but also get some very cool stuff in return, because the supply drop is our number one most effective program, I guess. Not only because people are putting value back into the show, but, some people like to get some cool stuff. And the supply drop, every quarter, we will send you a package. It'll arrive right on your doorstep, and it'll be chock-a-block full with custom created, producer-produced, artist-designed. This is a true Canarian project. It is off the grid. It is outside of the normal thing. This is what Canarians built for other Canarians. So it's very thoughtful. It's very cool. It's high quality, and it's as much of it that can be made in the United States. It is made in the United States. And I only say that to say, sometimes there's a piece of something that is manufactured in China, but is purchased from an American company. Anyways, it's excellent. And not only does it support the show, but it also supports other Canarian families just like you. So go to canarycrysupply.com to sign up. We had a couple people sign up recently, and their names are producer Ty B and producer Lucas M. Both signed up. Thank you very much, both of you, for that. Let me see. I see a couple things coming in now. Am I able to look at it? Live on the air. No, I'm not. Okay. We got a few people. Let's thank these people here. Next up, we got Producer Anonymous. Thank you, Producer Anonymous. Came in for $10.36. Thank you very much. We got Cage Rattler Coffee coming in to support the show.
Cage Rattler Coffee. For value never tasted so good.
Cage Rattler Coffee, folks. Go check it out, CageRattlerCoffee.com. Again, this is another producer project. This is not, we don't own this. This is not, it's not our thing. It's a producer project. Canarians just like you getting together, roasting coffee. It's excellent coffee. Is the best in the world, or so I've been told, and Canarians are loving it. In fact, we're getting more and more people requesting that we make or not we, but they make a subscription option. So I'll talk to them. Maybe they'll be able to do that. And Canarians keep coming back. And here's why. A, you got to buy coffee anyways. You're going to drink coffee. You're going to, even if you're trying your best to not give your money to an evil corporation that hates you and everything that you stand for, it's still very hard to feel good about that. So in this case, once again, cagerattlercoffee.com, not only are you a portion supporting this show, so you're value free, you're supporting this show, but you're also supporting Canarian families who put in the work to do this for the community, for you guys. It's the parallel economy here where we can keep, our resources circulating in the groups of people that we feel are most aligned with us. It's very cool. And the coffee's very good. We got beans from all over the place. Nicaragua, and I think the Congo, Peru, Honduras. It's like the real deal. And it's all roasted small batch by Canarians, packaged lovingly and sent off whenever you want it. There's the Nephilim Hunter Dark Roast, the Emu Wrangler Medium Roast. Go get it. It's very fun. Now, just got the notice. We got 10% off 3-pound bags with the code Wormicorn. Okay, so go out there, get the 3-pound bag, get 10% off, put in the code Wormicorn, WORMICORN, and this is in celebration of the 24th anniversary of NASA sending 5,000 tardigrades to space, a seminal moment in Canary Cry lore. So celebrate the Wormicorns getting sent into space. Use the discount code Wormicorn for 10% off a 3-pound bag. I got a note from Stephen H. here, just on the topic of Cage Rattler Coffee. It says, greetings to you, Basil and Gons. This one is for you, Gons. I was diving into the scriptures and found a passage that describe what God does whenever someone brews up a hot cup of Cage Rattler coffee. It's Hebrews 1:2. It says, love you guys. Keep up the kingdom work. Peace be with you, and may God bless all that you do. Stephen H. Thank you, Stephen H. So Stephen H. Says, let's see here. This is the passage that describes what God does whenever someone brews up a hot cup of Cage Rattler coffee. Hebrews 1:2 says, but in these last days he has spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed heir of all things, and through whom also he made the universe. Yeah, so you brew up some Cage Rattler coffee, and let's see, in these last, he's spoken to us by his Son. So the Son of God speaks to you when you brew up Cage Rattler coffee. Thank you very much, Stephen H., for that. We also had Sir Darren, Night of the Hungry Panda, come in. Thank you very much, Sir Darren, for $7.77. And the note was just prompt ed. Prompt, capital E-D. Is that prompt education? Was that a joke that I missed? I like it, whatever it is. Thank you, Sir Darren. Out of the Hungry Panda. Maybe it's about prompting AI or something. We also had the American Hobo. He was one of the 2 people who supported last Wednesday, so he's getting double credit today, coming in for $23.32. Thank you, the American Hobo. 14 episode streak. Very impressive. Thank you. We also had producer Aaron B. come in last week, and counting today, that would put him at, I think, a 28 episode streak. Thank you very much, producer Aaron B. Okie dokie. Did somebody else come in earlier in the show? I just don't want to get mixed up. Nope. Yep. I think that's it. Okay. Anybody else who comes in, I will we'll put you on the list for next episode. So thank you very much to our financial producers. Appreciate it a lot. Couldn't do the show without you. And I would say anybody else out there, if you want to produce the show, if you've been getting value, if you've learned anything new, if your life is better in any way, consider putting some time, some talent, or some treasure back into the show. You can learn all about it at canarycry.support. And for our streakers who are coming in supporting the show for under $7.77, I got you. I am tracking your streak. You are still going. I'll thank you next episode. Thank you. Okay, let's see. Is there any announcements or anything to make? I don't think so. I think I gave the announcements before. Oh, I will say this. Producer Ciara, the old timer, really active back during the COVID days and a little bit after. Many of you will remember producer Ciara. She has a GoFundMe going on for her father. Let me click over here into this. I hope she's okay with this. Somebody sent it to me, and I just want to make sure that we get it out there. Let me put it up on screen. That's not it. Okay. Why can't I get this on screen? There it is. Help Dad's journey with ALS. Accessible van needed. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, so it sounds like Sierra's dad says, as many of you know, or at least have noticed, our dad is not his usual self. What started off as back pain sometime in 2023 turned into difficulty swallowing, occasional nerve, muscle spasms, falls, and extreme weight loss in a matter of months. We're not sure what is happening or why it was occurring so quickly, but finally got a diagnosis in the summer of 2024. Doctors said all signs had pointed to ALS, but they were still running various tests, and he was seeking many different doctors. By the end of 2024, our dad was in a wheelchair 90% of the time with an ALS diagnosis on permanent disability. Goodness gracious, there's a lot more here to read, but I encourage you all to go read the whole story. So, producer Sierra, I put this link into the newsletter. So if you're on the newsletter list, you'll have this link in the, in the newsletter there. I also had a family member who had ALS, and it is it's a project. So it looks like they're raising money to get a wheelchair accessible van so Dad can get back out there, get back out on the town, move around, lots of doctor's appointments. I mean, you just need one of these accessible vans. They're about a third of the way there. So I will certainly be making a contribution to that, producer Ciara. We're just so grateful for everything that you've done for us over the years. And we're praying for you more than anything. So, producers out there, you should do the same. Can I get this? Okay, I'll pop it into the chat. Link is in the chat there, folks. Thank you very much. Okay. Oh, art. Let's do some art. Let me pull this up here. We had some art come in. Let me see if I can pick it up. I can. So many buttons to push. First of all, we got a song from Lil Owen. It says, the Lord laid this song on my heart. It's a mix of different scripture. The context is the struggle that we have, just as the Apostle Peter had too. It is that many times we savor the things of men rather than the things of God. Crazy thing is, Peter was rebuked by the Lord for saying he should not die right after it was revealed to him from above that Jesus was the very Christ. To follow Christ, it takes 100% commitment some days. I'm not there. Love you all. John 21:15 KJV. So when they had dined, Jesus saith to Simon Peter, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me more than these? He saith unto him, Yea, Lord, thou knowest that I love thee. He saith unto him, Feed my lambs. It's been a while since KGV. Thank you very much, Lil Owen. I'll give you a little taste of Lil Owen's new track now, and then I will play that at the end of the show. So here's just a little bit.
The lust of the flesh
Beautiful, Lil Owen. Thank you so much. I'll play that at the end of the show for the Canary Crime mixtape. Next up, we have Jonathan F. Jonathan F. comes in. He says, hello, just a short piece from probably the funniest part of the AI production you guys featured during the AI portion of last show. Okay.
You must conserve your special human bodily fluids.
Yeah, that was a wild, wild one. Yeah, it's so funny because it's taking such a dig at anyone who wasn't 100% on board with AI. It was just like, hey, if you have a problem with AI, you think you're special human? You think you're a special human because you have fluids that robots don't have? Get over yourself. Thank you very much, Jonathan F. Okay, we had a piece of art here from Sir Salmons. Great to see you on the list here, Sir Salmons. Let me get it up on screen. Here it is. This is hilarious. Wow, Sir Salmons, your art has seriously moved up to the next level. Sir Salmon says, happy Monday, Canarium. A few weeks ago, there was an article read on the show about wormicorns being given some sketchy tattoos. And while I was having a conversation with Sir Ike, he thought it would be funny to have the art made. So here is a buff, tatted up wormicorn getting some Luciferase Illuminati body art done by a Nephilim penguin. You'll only see this kind of thing on this show, folks. Thanks for all you do, Basil and Gons. Many blessings from the fishes. Thank you very much, Sir Salmons. Seriously, Sir Salmons, this is the craziest part about people doing art for the show, is we often get to see their skills develop over many years. And this is incredible, Sir Salmons. It is a horrifying depiction of a giant tardigrade. And if you've never seen one, look it up. It's terrifying. With a bandana on his head, very biker, very cool. He's got many arms. He's got 6 or 8 arms, and they're all tatted up. And he's getting tattooed again by a Nephilim penguin, of course. Another monstrosity thought up in the brains of the terrible producers of this show. And it's very intense. The Nephilim penguin has a huge cone head, an elongated skull. Because, of course, thanks to L.A. Marzulli. And Tim Alberino, by the way. Let me get on Tim Alberino for a second. But yes, this Nephilim penguin's got a huge elongated head. And I wish I could zoom in. I can't zoom in because I'm doing this from the thing. But the tattoos on these crazy Canary Cry characters are out of control. I'm going to zoom in with Gons. We'll take a closer look next time. Speaking of which, Tim Alberino, my goodness. He's Michael Knowles, Tim Pool. Was he on Joe Rogan? I don't know. Tim Alberino. He's broken out. He's done it. For those who don't know, Tim Alberino is our buddy. Was doing his research in Peru on mummies and Nephilim and stuff. Back when we were getting started, we had him on the show multiple times. Very cool guy. Even did some conferences with him and stuff. And he popped, baby. He's doing it. He's out there. He's getting the word out about the Nephilim, getting the word out about the Peruvian mummies, about UFOs. I mean, dude, they are letting him go off too. It's crazy. I'm very happy for him. And indeed, I would say I'm even proud of Tim. He's stuck with it. He's done a great job. And I don't know. I hope we get to talk to him soon. Hope he's not you get a little worried when your pals from back in the day start going on huge conservative alternative podcasts, basically mainstream podcasts now. But yeah, I'm gonna check in with that guy. Let's see here. Who else? What else did we have? We got something from. Oh, I cannot see this. Annie's not okay. Is this from Anne? Why is it so tiny? I apologize. This is so tiny. I cannot see this. I'm getting in there. I'm getting in there. Enhance. Enhance. Anne's not okay. All right, Anne's not okay. Anne's not okay sent, let's see what she sent. A video file. I'm going to play the video file. Faith over fear in beautiful teal glittery letters spinning around. Thank you very much. And a note that says Psalm 118:6. Well, I suppose I will go look up Psalm 118:6 right now, because faith over fear, that's a good thing. I mean, this is essential for existing in today's world. There's a moment of transformation. Not going to open Bible Gateway, as Canary Cry Clubhouse and Basil's Bunker listeners know. Bible Gateway will crash my computer because there's 127 trackers. Psalm 118:6, the Lord is with me. I will not be afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? Very nice. Thank you very much, Ann. Thank you to all of our very talented producers coming in, helping build the culture behind the community. Just a tip for anybody out there who might fancy themselves a artistic producer of the show. Go to canarycry.art, and you'll see you can upload your art there, leave us a little message, and it'll put it on a spreadsheet for us so we can feature it on the show. So let's go ahead and do that, okay? canarycry.art. Okay. This has been very difficult for me to keep an eye out on the chat. Chat has been going the whole time. That's one of the hardest parts about not having guns here, is not being able to stare at chat, scroll by. All right, I got one more story here. We're going to land the plane. What story is it? Oh, right. Okay, this is a little update on something we've been tracking for quite some time. Been talking about network states. The nation state is over, and exactly as it has been foretold for many years now, corporations getting into the citizenship game. We have from New York Post, Elon Musk's Starbase town in Texas warns residents might lose the right to use their property. We've been talking about corporate towns wrapped up in the network state concept. This is the future. I mean, this is some real Alex Karp stuff here. You can, if you live in this town in Texas, you are now a citizen of SpaceX, which is fun. Elon Musk's SpaceX-controlled town in Texas warned local residents that they might lose the right to continue using their property, according to a report. Starbase, formerly known as Boca Chica Village, is run by current and former SpaceX employees who will hold a hearing on June 23rd to consider rezoning of the 1.6 square mile town located in the Rio Grande Valley, CNBC reported. In a letter to homeowners, Starbase Administrator Kent Myers said a new ordinance proposes creating a mixed-use district for residential, office, retail, and small-scale service uses. Quote, the city is required by Texas law to notify you of the following. How heinous is that? This is SpaceX taking control of a town and getting ready to take away people's rights to their own property, I'm assuming via an eminent domain law or something. And the notice goes out and it says, Texas law requires us to notify you. It's the law of Texas that we have to tell you. We're gonna take away your land. Don't you just want to notify them because it's the right thing to do, or because it's your neighbors or citizens of your town? No, it's the law. It's the only reason I'm telling you this. Here's the following. The city of Starbase is holding a hearing that will determine whether you may lose the right to continue using your property for its current use, Myers wrote in a letter obtained by CNBC. SpaceX did not immediately respond to the Post's request for comment. Starbase was officially made a Type C municipal corporation earlier in the month after Musk's aerospace and defense contractor won a local election. Whew, that's crazy. The company town has a population of roughly 500 people, around 260 of whom are employed by SpaceX. According to the Texas Tribune, most of the other residents are relatives of SpaceX employees. Yeah, Starbase includes the launch facility where SpaceX's massive Starship rockets are tested. The town is actively trying to gain permission so it can close a main road and beaches for launches during the week. Musk's space firm earlier this week conducted its 9th test flight from the Texas facility of its huge Starship rocket, which exploded for the 3rd time in a row after a major fuel leak. The Starship stands about 400 feet tall. Okay, you're just going to tell me about a spaceship now? SpaceX aims to use the Starship to transport people and equipment around Earth to the moon and to eventually colonize Mars, according to Musk. The FAA said there were no reports of injuries to people or damages to public property. They're just talking about the spaceship now. The billionaire space firm is one of the largest government contractors, receiving more than $20 billion since 2008. Okay. Boca Chica Village. Boca Chica Village, apparently entirely inhabited by SpaceX employees, voted to become a municipality owned by SpaceX? Is that what it is? Run by SpaceX? SpaceX is the government. Now, we've been talking about this for quite some time. The network state, with this whole nation state idea, this whole thing is going away. And it might not be away tomorrow. It might not be away 5 years from now. Although I will probably say it's coming. It could happen in 5 years. All it will take is some huge catastrophe for the leaders of the world to get together and say, we need to change the system. But network state is a long-standing academic theory and now principal way of organizing human beings around the earth, where you're no longer just primarily a citizen of a nation state, but you are held to the standards and rules of your network state. You can think of it easily. It's not a perfect way to think of it, but it's easy to imagine it when you think of, being a citizen of Facebook or being a citizen of X or being a citizen of blah, blah, blah. In the world today, especially with the internet, but also very fast travel, things like this, where the globalists would use this as a way to say, we need to get rid of borders. That's not really good enough, though, just getting rid of borders. Because if there's no borders, then what decides your citizenship? Because if there's no borders, there's no country. Well, you don't need a country if you are subjecting yourself to the standards and requirements and whatever to be a citizen of a network state. Because geography really doesn't matter these days. I mean, it does. The nation state mentality and ethos is not unimportant. And in fact, we kind of see a little bit of some friction with this, because the technocrats, they love the network state, because that means any corporation can basically start acting like a government. The World Economic Forum public-private partnerships were sort of based around this. But this Alex Karp guy coming in with some really new not new ideas, but new for the time that we are in. Bringing back, harnessing the power of patriotism, nationalism. If we are not in a time right now that is seeing a resurrection of the power and influence of nation state citizenship, pride, things like this. I don't know what we're doing. But there you go. Elon's first. Should we start taking bets on the next billionaire to start a town? I know Zuckerberg got approval, but every major company is going to start having one of these things. Yeah, every major corporation, at least. I mean, they're mostly the tech companies or the tech-focused companies, because goodness gracious, you're a tech company. Why should you be beholden to the rules of a nation state? You have no borders. You know, if you're primarily on the internet or you're doing business in every country in the world, it would be silly. It's constricting for no reason for a corporation to not be its own country. And that's just what Elon's doing. And like a lot of people are relearning the consequences, or shall we say continuously learning the consequences of putting our faith in billionaires. So there you go. All right, goodness gracious. This is a long show. Look at us go. Go take the survey. Go take it right now. Don't wait for me to end the show. Go into the description. You'll see a link. It's like tiny.cc/846 rather. Tell me what you think. It's only 5 questions. 3 of them are multiple choice, and the other 2 aren't required. So it's very fast. Not only does it help us understand what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, we're also putting some experimental ideas in there, and we want to know what you think. If you've ever wondered how, as a producer of the show, you can, let your thoughts be heard, because look, you can't just put your thoughts in the comments section. I don't know if Gons does, but I can't read a whole comment section, especially ones that are mean to me. So if you want to make your voice heard, if you want to play a part in the further development of the show, of the community, trying our hardest to do one of these surveys every episode. And I want to try to figure out a way to reward survey streakers. Be on a survey streak. It'd be fun. Send you some stickers or something. We'll figure it out. But other than that, I want to thank the rest of our producers. We got some producers coming in, helping us out with not just the talent, not just the treasure, but also the time. It takes time, folks. It took me like 4 hours to set up the show today. And I wasn't so sure if I said, oh, it took longer to set up the show than the... I mean, we came pretty close. We're at 3.5 hours. But still, took longer to set up the show than it is. There's a lot of work going on back there. Let's see. Do I have the jingles that it will take for me to do this? That's always a good question. Timestamps. Nope. Okay. Well, I'm going to take a second and thank the timestampers. Wow. Timestamps. Timestamps. It's hard work. Wow. Thank you, timestampers. Either Jade Bouncerson or Morgan E. helped us out with the timestamps for last episode, so I really appreciate that. Thank you to Jam, who is the leader of the Telegram, and Adam42 is the leader of the Discord. Are you a Telegram or a Discord person? Well, are you? Well, become one. If you're not, go to canarycry.party, and you'll see links to the Telegram and the Discord there. Thank you to Joe for the feedback. Thank you to Clank for everything you're doing, Clank. We are unable to find in the Red Book where we predicted that Robot Fight Club would be in our future. Robot Fight Club is officially real. It was beyond, I think, our records, but I'm still maintaining that was a called shot. Thank you very much, Clank. Other than that, don't share the show. Don't share it with anybody. Keep it your little secret. Listen to it in the car. Go in the closet. Go in a dark closet. Lock yourself in there. Surround yourself with dirty clothes and towels because it's kind of comfortable sometimes. It's nice and quiet and dark. And listen to the show in there, okay? Do not tell your friends and family. who are waking up to the fact that the mainstream media does not have their best interests at heart, do not tell them about this show. Because look, we don't want people waking up and rising up and joining the ranks of spiritually empowered fifth generation warriors. We don't want that. I mean, who needs that? That's like a whole thing. I don't know. Maybe we do. I'm going to leave it up to you. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave it up to you. If you want to share the show, you can. But really, really make sure you want to do that, because we don't want to blow people's minds. Other than that, we do call it rattling cages. And all you got to do is walk right up to him, grab him by the cage, and then you shake it.
The end of the world occurred pretty much as we had predicted.
I want to shake things up, stir up some controversy, rattle a few cages. Hey, stop that! You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man, a crusader for the little guy. Leave the bird alone. Never. Rattle a few cages. Rattle a few cages.
The human race will have every opportunity to improve.
And if they don't?
Ask Noah.
That's right. Just ask Noah. Gons, you got any last words? Gons? Gonzo? Gons, do you have any last words? Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how to do Gons' voice. Yeah. I'm Gons. How do you even do Gons'? What even is there? I don't know. I've had his voice in my ears for so long, I can't even tell the difference between his voice and mine. So, Gons, thanks. Thanks for being here, Gons. You're welcome. Basil. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Canary Cry News Talk. Please make sure to tune in next time. But until then, think outside the cage, okay? Oh, yeah, and text the word Canary to 877-740-3226. One more again, that's Canary to 877-740-3226. All right, everybody. Think outside the cage. Oh, yeah, stick around for Lil Owen's track.
Remember, reality is an illusion. The universe is a hologram. Buy gold. Buy!
The lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. Do you love me more than these? Be my sheep, or have I gone the way of Cain? Have I ran greedily after the error of Balaam? Am I gainsaying too